Okay, good evening, everyone. I call the October 27th, 2025 school board meeting to order. It is 6:01 p.m. We are in the conference room C of the Fisher Administration Building at 12121 West North Avenue. Ms. Summers, please call the roll.
Ms. Brzezinski, here. Mr. Bauer,
Here.
Ms. Bach, here. Mr. Morris,
Here.
Ms. Heimer-Rolland, here. Dr. Worley,
Here.
Mr. Wadier.
Here.
Thank you. So I believe we have a motion, Mr. Bauer, for the agenda order.
Yes, I move to swap the agenda items 2 and 3, such that item 3 appears next.
And so we are going to vote board on moving the oath of office for student representatives to the school board to come right after the meeting opening, and then public comment directly after the oath of office.
I do believe we need to set this.
I was just clarifying what you all are voting on seconding. Yes.
I'll second.
You second, Mr. Wadier, thank you. Any discussion? Seeing none, Ms. Summers, please call the roll.
Ms. Brzezinski,
Yes.
Mr. Bauer,
Yes.
Ms. Bach,
Yes.
Mr. Morris,
Yes.
Ms. Heimer-Rolland,
Yes.
Dr. Worley,
Yes,
Mr. Wadier.
Yes.
and the motion carries. Thank you so much. Ms. Bach, you as clerk, would you do the oath of office? Thank you,
Yes.
and welcome to all the students. We're so glad that you're able to be here tonight.
We'll start with maths. So I'll just say a phrase and then you can repeat after me. I, Maximilian Decker,
I, Maximilian Decker,
having been appointed to the office of student representative
having been appointed to the office of student representative
to the Wauwatosa School Board for the 2025-2026 school year,
to the Wauwatosa School Board for the 2025 to 2026 school year,
but have not yet entered upon the duties thereof,
but have not yet entered upon the duties thereof,
swear or affirm that I will support the Constitution of the United States
swear or affirm that I will support the Constitution of the United States
and the Constitution of the State of Wisconsin,
and the Constitution of the State of Wisconsin,
and will faithfully discharge the duties of said office to the best of my ability.
and will faithfully discharge the duties of said office to the best of my ability.
Excellent, thank you.
Next, Keegan Young. I, Keegan Young,
I, Keegan Young,
having been appointed to the office of student representative
having been appointed to the office of student representative
to the Wauwatosa School Board for the 2025-2026 school year,
the Wauwatosa School Board for the 2025 to 2006 school year,
but have not yet entered upon the duties thereof,
but have not yet entered upon the duties thereof,
swear or affirm that I will support the Constitution of the United States
swear or affirm that I will support the Constitution of the United States
and the Constitution of the State of Wisconsin,
and the Constitution of the State of Wisconsin,
and will faithfully discharge the duties of said office to the best of my ability.
will faithfully discharge the duties of said office to the best of my ability.
Thank you. June Straka. I, June Straka,
I, June Streka,
having been appointed to the office of student representative
having been appointed to the office of student
to the Wauwatosa School Board for the 2025 to 2026 school year,
to the Wauwatosa School Board of the 2025 to 2026 school year,
but have not yet entered upon the duties thereof,
but yet have not entered upon the duties thereof,
swear or affirm that I will support the Constitution of the United States
swear or affirm that I will support the Constitution of the United States
and the Constitution of the State of Wisconsin,
and the Constitution of the State of Wisconsin,
and will faithfully discharge the duties of said office to the best of my ability.
and will faithfully discharge the duties of said office to the best of my ability.
Thank you. And last, Natalie McCabe. I, Natalie McCabe,
I, Natalie McCabe,
having been appointed to the office of student representative
having been appointed to the office of student representative
to the Wauwatosa School Board for the 2025 to 2026 school year,
to the Wauwatosa School Board for the 2025-2026 school year,
but have not yet entered upon the duties thereof,
but have not yet entered upon the duties thereof,
swear or affirm that I will support the Constitution of the United States
swear or affirm that I will support the Constitution of the United States
and the Constitution of the State of Wisconsin,
and the Constitution of the State of Wisconsin,
and will faithfully discharge the duties of said office to the best of my ability.
and will faithfully discharge the duties of said office to the best of my ability.
Thank you.
Well, school board members, new school board members, student reps, let's give them a round of welcome and applause. Can we take just a couple seconds and each of you maybe could tell us something that you're passionate about in your life, and that'll help us also to get to know you a little bit and remember your names.
I can get started. I'm Max. I'm a senior at Wauwatosa West. I'm passionate in government and law and research. I did APSI last year, and I got a lot of passion out of that. And so I'm really looking forward to holding this position and contributing whatever I can.
Excellent. Thank you, Max. Natalie, do you want to go next? Just go around the room.
My name's Natalie. I'm also a senior at Wauwatosa West High School. I'm also interested in political science. I'm taking AP Gov and AP US History right now, and this is a position that I'm interested in.
Excellent. Thank you. I can see board members that we're going to have to be on our toes and stick with that opens meeting laws as always, and we'll get some guidance as we go along as well. Keegan, how about you?
I'm Keegan Young. I am a junior at Wauwatosa East, and similar to both of them, I'm also interested in government and politics. I'm an APSI currently, and I just think it's very interesting.
Excellent. Thank you.
What unit are you?
Or
I can see some great questions coming forward.
Hi, I'm June. I'm a senior at Tosa East. I did APSI last year as well. I was Unit 1. I also have a lot of passion in government, and I'm really excited to see this year kind of how it works like on a local level, because I think that's like super important to me. Yeah.
Thank you for telling us a little bit. And it's great to have students with so much experience and background already and interest joining us. And of course, just so community members know, students are still students. So if they have things they need to do for studying or for school or care that they need, responsibilities, then we do know that there's going to be times that they may not all be there. And one of the things that we often have said is if you haven't already, you may want to connect with each other so that if you have a schedule issues or whatever, you can think about, can one or the other of us get there, or can one out of 4 of us get there, just to support each other as we go forward. Any other comments from board members?
Just welcome. I know in many of our meetings, the student input is amongst the best input that we get. So thank you for committing this time to be with us on Monday nights. And I'm looking forward to learning more about you all as we move forward this year.
And also thanks, Mr. Bauer, for your work interviewing.
Yeah.
And Mr. Pinion for your efforts in pulling students in. We appreciate as Ms. Hammer-Rollin has said, having the perspective on the board is really, really important to us. So thanks for being here. Okay. And if you ever have questions about the flow or how things are going, don't hesitate to ask. Okay. So we're going to move on now to item number what was item number 2 is now item number 3, public comment. We will be taking public comment from both in the room and online, starting with in the room and then moving to online. But first I will read our policy about public comment. We always read this because many times people come just to this meeting as their first meeting, and so they may not know how public comment works. And we want everyone to have full access to the information. Public comment at board meetings is policy number 0167.3. Members of the board value the input of students, parents, staff members, and community members. The board's regularly scheduled meetings provide an opportunity for opinions and concerns to be expressed publicly. The board values all comments and will respectfully consider this input in decision-making. The board will take public comment on both non-agenda items and agenda items at each regular board meeting and may take public comment during special board meetings. The public comment period will occur near the beginning of the meeting and shall not exceed 30 minutes in length unless extended by the presiding officer or a vote of the board. Individuals must limit their comments to 3 minutes. Participants must be recognized by the presiding officer and will be requested to preface their comments by an announcement of their name. Public comments submitted to the school board email address by 10 a.m. on the day of the meeting of the board will be added to the online meeting documents to become part of public records. Email public comments must include the name of the person or persons submitting the comment. Board response to public comment. All public comments shall be directed to the presiding officer. No person may address or question board members individually or direct statements, comments, or questions to staff or other meeting participants. Board members are obligated to follow the Wisconsin Open Meeting Law, which requires advance notification to the community of the board's intent to discuss and/or take action on an item. If public comment concerns an item that is not on the current meeting agenda, board members may not respond other than to thank and acknowledge the speaker for their input. The presiding officer may A, limit the number of times a speaker may comment on the same topic. B, interrupt, warn, or terminate a public comment when the statement is too lengthy, directed to anyone other than the board presiding officer, obscene, or disorderly. C, request any individual to leave the meeting when that person engages in conduct which is disorderly. D, request the assistance of law enforcement officers and/or security officials in the removal of a disorderly person when that person's conduct interferes with the orderly progress of the meeting. E, call for a recess or an adjournment to another time when disorderly conduct so interferes with the orderly conduct of the meeting as to warrant such action. F, waive these rules with the approval of the board when necessary for the protection of privacy or the administration of the board's business. Recording, filming, or photographing board meetings is permitted. The person operating the equipment should contact the superintendent prior to the board meeting to review possible placement of the equipment and must agree to abide by the following conditions. A, no obstructions are created between the board and the audience. B, no interviews are conducted in the meeting room while the board is in session. C, no commentary, adjustment of equipment, or positioning of operators is made that would distract either the board or members of the audience or otherwise disrupt the meeting while the board is in session. The board encourages all residents to be well informed about school affairs. Therefore, regular board meetings are live streamed and the recorded school board meetings are available for viewing online on the district's website. Executive sessions and in-services for the board members are not recorded. Okay, so we will move to public comment time. I'm looking in the room. I'm inviting any public comment that might be in the room. Seeing none, I'm going to move to online. I do see one hand up, so I would invite the microphone for Mr. Merker, Dr. Merker, to be turned on.
Chris Merker, you have the microphone.
Dr. Merker, you're still showing as your microphone not being turned on, just so you know that. I don't want you to start talking and think we hear you.
Can you hear me?
We can hear you now. Thank you so much.
All right, good evening. My name is Chris Merker, speaking on behalf of the 2030 Task Force and as a Wauwatosa parent. I want to address the proposal to replace our current level math program with an integrated math curriculum. Over the past several months, the task force has reviewed national research and district case studies from Georgia to San Francisco, and the findings are clear. There is no compelling evidence that integrated math produces better or more equitable outcomes. Many districts that tried it ultimately reversed course after years of frustration, lower achievement, and community division. The claim that there are studies on both sides is not justification for change. It's an admission that the evidence is inconclusive. When research is mixed, the responsible course is to pilot, evaluate, and proceed cautiously, not to gamble with the education of an entire generation of students. Math proficiency in our district is already below 50%. Instead of addressing what's broken, this plan would dismantle what works, and remove accelerated options for students who are ready to move ahead. If the board is intent on this change, then it should at least do the research and be honest about why this approach has failed elsewhere and explain clearly why they believe it will somehow succeed here. We urge the board to put evidence before ideology. Pause implementation of integrated math. Pilot it in limited settings with measurable evaluation. Protect pathways for advanced learners. Prioritize teacher input, parent engagement, and curriculum decisions. And then just on that one point about protected pathways, I heard the other night that, oh yeah, we're going to have options for advanced learners. We're just going to let them skip a grade. Denying students an entire year of content is not acceleration. That's not how accelerated math works today, for good reason. The community wants improvement, not experimentation. It's time to focus on results, not rhetoric. Thank you.
Thank you very much. I'm not seeing any other hands online, and I'm not seeing any other public comment in the room. So I'm going to end our period of public comment. So we will move on to item number 4. So I'm going to use a few notes, board members. I just wanted to give a brief update, partly because it's hard. Just want to make sure you all can hear me, but I'm getting a lot of feedback too. So let me just share. I asked for this opportunity because I was very excited from our engagement session last week. And some of you were there, some of you had other things that you had to be at, and many community members might also want to hear a little bit about it. So I just want to take a couple of minutes of our board meeting to update you, and any other members that were there. If you want to follow up, you're welcome to share brief impressions as well. We had about 30 participants. We were very excited about the turnout. We met in the cafeteria in the East. East High School. I want to do a shout out to our staff, both that helped set it up, as well as particularly our technology staff, who provided support to address some of the requests for accessibility, and also made sure that they stayed the whole time, made sure that everything went smoothly, and that was super helpful. We had I would say, my opinion, very engaged group. A lot of participation. We started with we had a great facilitator. He started us off by having the group use our phones for polling, to give people an opportunity to express their thoughts anonymously, but also be able to see everybody else's thoughts. So it was rolling on the screen. And some of the comments were read out. And the questions were 2. One was, what's going well in the schools? And the second was, what could be going better? And we will be getting a full report from the facilitator with major themes. We're working on a plan to also make that accessible online on the webpage so that community members can see it as well. I would just say in general, I mean, obviously I can't give the whole list in the time that we have, but there were positives, for example, about the cell phone policy, appreciation for the hard work of teachers and staff, positives about the daily experience that students were having in the schools, and the quality of education in our schools. I'm sure there were others that I haven't mentioned, but those were just a few of the ones that came up. There were also concerns then with the second question. Some concerns included more work about and doing more about the disproportionality among student groups in the district. Uncertainty about the impact of the new math curriculum, and the decision that actually we're talking about tonight. The need to find better ways to fund our schools. A need for a better system of offering tutoring so that it's at both high schools. These are just a few examples of sort of like the gamut that the comments ran. And the concerns about accessing communication from the district if you're not a parent. Those are just some examples of some things that we heard. We then took a few minutes to review the policy governance model of the board, which defines the board as responsible for developing the vision of the district and setting the policy to guide us forward in the vision and strategic plan. And that the board is, we also talked about how the board is responsive to community members, parents, and students, and uses listening and synthesizing to work collaboratively with other board members, and our one direct report, the superintendent, toward the vision that we have set and we have voted on. This structure, we talked about how this structure sets clear lines of responsibility and provides opportunities for the superintendent and the board to debate and discuss. Policy is a process not dictated by any role or a single person. And also, having it set up this way avoids the confusion and frustration of board micromanagement and administrator overreach. And I gave for an example of how the cell phone policy cycles through different aspects of the structure of the district for feedback and for change and for vote. This structure creates plenty of opportunity for differences of opinion and approach to effectively govern together, the true heart of our democratic system. So we just went over a little bit of the policy governance model. And we got a little feedback during the meeting in some of the small groups that people had not really understood what that was. So I think that was time well spent. And then we are, as was already raised in public comment, we're going to have some more discussion tonight of the future of math in the district, the math curriculum. And there was good, robust discussion during open. At the end of the engagement session was an open comment time. And there was engagement around and questions around math curriculum as well as some of the other priorities. And so just coming off of that, it made me really think about how important it is after listening to community members at that session that we approach these decisions with curiosity, with openness to different opinions, and with the understanding, in this case, integrated math. It pushed me to do some more reading over the last week, has been scientifically studied and implemented with, and this is what I've discovered, with gifted students as well as with students who need more supports. When I went and looked at the research, it was mixed, but it was mixed across in not the same ways we were talking about. It was mixed in that there have been studies of its applications in lots of ways. So what I came off of in listening to community members was how important the process of implementation would be if we were going to make this kind of a shift in the district. So that because the structure of integrated math itself can be used in a lot of different ways. We understand everyone couldn't be there. We had a great mix of stakeholders and perspectives. And I wanted to remind everyone that we'll be holding another session on November 12th. It will not be a complete repeat. We'll use some of the same structures, but there will be some new questions for discussion. But we're also not going to throw out what we learned last time. We're going to build on that knowledge and have the group work some more on some of these key concerns and possibilities and opportunities that are coming out with our engagement with the public. So that's November 12th. That one will be at West High School. If anyone is looking for accommodations for differently abled, please reach out to the district office and we will make plans to accommodate. So we hope some people will return that were there last time, and we hope some new people will attend. So that's my update. I don't know if anyone else, any other board members who were there wish to comment, or board members have questions. Great. Yeah. Go
I'm
ahead,
sorry
Ms.
I
Brzezinski.
wasn't there.
Oh.
Thank you for bringing those notes forward.
Yeah, absolutely. No, and we absolutely had a great learning experience. It was clear that there was hunger for engagement, and we look forward to offering that on a more regular basis through the year. So, thank you. Okay, so we will move to our consent agenda, item number 5. So just for the student members joining us for the first time, the consent agenda is interesting. It looks very complicated when you look at it on paper, and that's because a board member can remove an item from consent agenda to be talked about individually. Some nice that happens. Some nights it doesn't. So that's why it's got all these, it could be this, it could be that set of options. So we will move to the consent agenda. Are there any items on the consent agenda which board members would like to remove for separate discussion and action? Yes, Mr. Wadier.
Item FF, employee transactions.
Anyone else? Okay, seeing no others, we will remove F. We need to vote on that. So Mr. Wadier has requested item F, employee transactions, to be removed for separate discussion and action.
I believe it's FF.
FF, sorry, thank you. FF. Is there, other than making sure I have enough letters, is there, and are there any other concerns? Are there any objections? Okay. So could I, so I'm going to recommend that the school board approve the remaining. So I move that the FF be removed and that the school board approve the remainder of the consent agenda, and I so move. May I have a second?
Second.
Mr. Bauer, thank you. Ms. Summers, could you call the roll, please?
Ms. Brzezinski?
Yes.
Mr. Bauer?
Yes.
Ms. Bach?
Yes.
Mr. Morris?
Yes.
Ms. Heimer Roland?
Yes.
Dr. Worley?
Yes.
Mr. Wadier?
Yes.
And the motion carries. So the rest of the consent agenda has been approved, and we will now look at item FF, employee transactions. Mr. Wadier, please let us know what you wanted to talk about.
I just had a question, and I wish I would have been able to get to it sooner, and maybe get clarification on it so we didn't have to pull this out separately. I'm just looking at the first page of employee transactions, under the resignations, and the bottom two have the dash pending damages. And I would just like a little more information as to what that specifically means and it means to the district.
So I believe that would be a teacher that left and needed to pay for the contract.
Ms.
Right?
Elizonski's online.
Okay, perfect.
Good evening. Can you all hear me?
Yes, we can. Thank you for being here.
Of course. When a teacher resigns prior to the fulfillment of their contract, there's a portion of the teaching contract that indicates that there are liquidated damages. In other words, a financial penalty for not fulfilling the full term of the contract. In this instance, these teachers have resigned. We want to accept their resignations. However, we will not release them from contract until their damages penalty has been paid. And once that's done, they will be able to work under contract in another Wisconsin public school district.
Okay, thank you. Mr. Wade, is that?
How long does that process usually take, and let me rephrase the question. Do we see any road like speed bumps with that ever, issues with it, or is this fairly standard operating procedure for an early termination of a contract and then paying a set amount? I'm assuming the amount is something calculated and prorated in order to basically buy out the remainder of their contract to be released.
Yeah, let me take that in two parts, Mr. Wadier. First, the amounts of the contract liquidation penalties are established based on the date of the resignation. Once the school year has started, the penalty is $3,000. I am not aware of any public school district that does not charge penalties for early termination of a teaching contract. And if we experience failure to receive payment, then we have taken those penalties to small claims court, as do most other school districts that I can think of.
Okay, and then, so then, are there any instances where we would release someone from that contract without making every attempt at enforcing that?
There have been very limited instances where we have considered waiving a liquidated damages penalty. The only times that I can recollect in my professional history, not necessarily in Wauwatosa, have been for very significant reasons of illness or injury that don't allow the employee to work.
All right, thank you. That answers my questions.
Of course.
Anyone else? All right, and thank you, Ms. Zelazowski, for being here and helping us to understand this a little bit more. Mr. Waddy, thanks for bringing it up so that we could have a little bit more information about it. So if it pleases the board, then FF employee transactions, we're now gonna, we've had a discussion. I'd like to move that the board approve the FF employee transactions. May I have a second?
I'll second.
Thank you, Mr. Waddy. Ms. Summers, please call the roll.
Ms. Brzezinski?
Yes.
Mr. Bauer?
Yes.
Ms. Falk?
Yes.
Mr. Morris?
Yes.
Ms. Heimer Roland?
Yes.
Dr. Worley?
Yes,
Mr. Wadier?
Yes.
and the motion carries. Thank you so much. Before we jump on the next, I just want to mention that in the consent agenda, I want to express our appreciation for 3 gifts to the district received.
Thank you.
And all 3 for East High School, for different aspects of student support, from music to tech ed to supporting lunch for some students. So, yeah. Thank you so much to our donors. Some are names, some are anonymous, and you can find those reports in the posted agenda. Okay, we will move on then to the whole consent agenda. Item number 6, strategic goals, systems and structures. Letter A, action to approve the 2026-27 budget calendar. Thank you, Mr. Ecker, for being here.
This might be my first time in a year I got that done on the first try. So we had discussion on the 2026-27 budget calendar last month. This is for the board's action tonight. Very shortly, the board presumably will be approving our 25-26 budget, and already next month we'll begin working on 26-27. So just a couple of the first highlights I wanted to point out for the board is right away in December, there's going to be discussion, and then shortly after that, action on both what assumptions to use for 26-27, as well as open enrollment seats. So that's kind of a normal thing in December, but we're almost there already. So Dr. Means and I were just kind of talking today about what's upcoming on the budget calendar, and I wanted to highlight that.
Thank you. We've looked at this once before. Board members, do you have any comments or questions? Yes, Mr. Bell.
Yeah, absolutely. So it seems like just a few months ago, also because it was, we were talking about the budget and approving this year's budget back in July. At that time, we're like, well, this is great. So people brought up their concerns at that time. And I pointed out to them, well, we have to plan these things out so far in advance. This is the calendar. If you are advocating for something, if you're looking for something to be pulled in one direction or another, now is the time to start talking about that for next year. So let's start getting ahead of the curve. I'm speaking more to the community as opposed to you. I'm sure you understand that, but that's all I have.
Great, thank you. Any other comments or questions? Do you want to go get it, Liz?
It is recommended that the school board approve the 2026-2027 budget calendar, and I so move.
Thank you, Ms. Heimer-Roland. May I have a second?
Second.
Thank you, Mr. Morris. Ms. Summers, please call the roll.
Ms. Brzezinski?
Yes.
Mr. Bauer?
Yes.
Ms. Bach?
Yes.
Mr. Morris?
Yes.
Ms. Heimer Roland?
Yes.
Dr. Worley?
Yes,
Mr. Wadier?
Yes.
the motion carries. Thank you. So we'll move to letter B, action to approve certification of tax levy for 2025, 2026.
Sorry, it was, for some reason I was thinking you queued it up first. So we presented at the budget hearing in July an estimated tax levy of $81,259,539. That is also the recommended levy today. That assumes our revenue cap to the maximum limit. So as you might recall, and for the community, the state limits how much revenue can be received with the combination of state aid and local property taxes. That has been the case since about 1993 or 94. Prior to that, school boards could set essentially whatever property tax they wanted. So that legislation that went in place roughly 30 years ago limits the local authority that boards have. Again, this sets that levy to the limit. And it was last year that our community approved a 4-year non-recurring operating referendum to exceed that cap. So this includes that $16.1 million non-recurring referendum. We have that for 4 years. So that's this year and then the following 3 years that will be in effect. We also have a prior referendum fund. So that's for our capital referendum for both the 2018 referendum as well as the 2024 capital referendum. So that is money that we, the community has approved for our essentially facilities event. So you see that levy here. I think most of our community knows, and I know certainly our board knows, that we run the recreation department for our local community. That is probably more popular in Southeast Wisconsin than anywhere else in the state. Most school districts do not run the community recreation department. So one thing we want to keep in mind when we're comparing, for people that compare our total school district taxes to other school districts, is often, or most often, any other school district would not have a Fund 80 levy like we have, because it's more than likely their city running the recreation department. So just something to keep in mind when we're comparing apples to apples. One thing that we are doing is providing some flexibility in our levy because our state aid came in slightly higher than estimated in July. I've built in, you can see somewhat of a buffer in Fund 39. So that's slightly higher than what was anticipated. And that's to begin giving us some of that flexibility that we're going to need in the future to repay the city for their settlement with Freightert. So that is included here as well.
Board members, questions, comments?
Why is the money that you're potentially setting aside for that Freightert payments in the referendum fund and not in the general fund?
Right now, the state won't let us put it in the general fund. So my thinking is a year from now, we could potentially under levy in Fund 39 in order to bridge that gap. I'm sorry, I did want to show you one more thing because there is, one thing I was surprised by is and this is on page 2. You can see our equalized value has gone down for the first time in at least since 2014-15. And so that is not something we were anticipating. That's in large part due to both the freighter settlement as well as some other properties in the city having been reassessed. So I want to point that out. And I also wanted to give you a brief presentation regarding assessment versus equalized value and kind of how those things all work together. So give me 1 second to find that here.
Yes, that'd be great. Thank you.
See if the slideshow will work or if I just want to do it this way. Okay, good enough? Okay. So what I want to cover here is assessed value versus fair market value versus equalized value and how that plays out with the tax rate. And I think that is particularly interesting or we had a unique set of circumstances in our district this year in that our district passed a referendum. The city also went through a reassessment. And we also had this equalized value shift with a settlement. So kind of this super unique confluence of events. So just to begin with, fair market value and assessed value. So the fair market value is the estimated price a property would sell for, right? So on your tax bill, they'll show what the estimated fair market value is, as well as what the assessor lists as an assessed value. The assessed value is what is used for tax purposes. State law requires that every municipality, so school districts are not responsible for assessments, that is municipalities, that at least once every 5 years, reassessments are done. And the reason for that is property values change, over time. People put additions on their houses. One neighborhood becomes more desirable, one neighborhood becomes less desirable. So it kind of level sets the assessments. In a perfect world, the fair market value would always match the assessed value. But you can see in your property bills, they'll say fair market value, assessed value, and like 8% of what fair market value is to assessed value. So that you find on your property bills. What equalized value does is it tries to so we know that assessed value and fair market value don't match, but they're pretty close. Now imagine if you were trying to say, what is a home in Wauwatosa worth in Rhinelander? Equalized value is trying to equalize the wealth of school districts across the state in a relative way. So for our purposes, assessed and equalized are generally the same. And oftentimes they're even maybe used in similar ways or back and forth. But again, for our purposes, they're not identical, but they're very similar. And then there's the tax rate. So the tax rate is the total tax of the jurisdiction. So in that case, the school district, divided by the equalized value or very close proximity to the assessed value of the entire jurisdiction. So the levy divided by the complete value equals the tax rate. It's often presented in terms of dollars per 1,000. So if you see a rate of say $8, that property tax would be $8 per $1,000 of property value. So oversimplified example here. In this case, we have we'll call it a school district. It has a total tax levy of $10,000 and there's 5 properties in the school district. And all 5 properties were built at the exact same time, the exact same house. They're all worth the same thing, okay? So that's year 1. And that tax rate would be 1 cent per 1,000 or, yeah, 1 cent per 1,000. Year 2, I wonder if I can move this. Yes. So year 2, there's no reassessment, but property 4 has a kitchen addition. They go out, they pull a permit, they get the work done, it's all legal. But still in year 2, they're still just paying the same amount as everybody else. Oops. Year 3, this person in property 2, they finished their basement. Bad news for property 5 in year 4. Person gets built next door, so maybe they live in Waupun. But still, everyone's paying the same property taxes, right? Because it's all still the same value based on the very first year. And then in year 5, the assessor comes through and reassesses those properties. And the assessor says, okay, that kitchen made property 4 worth a bunch more. The basement made property 2 worth more. Property 5, that value went way down because the prison is next door. Nothing happened in properties 1 and 3. The school district still has a total levy of $10,000, but how that is spread amongst those 5 property owners has changed. Okay. That generally makes sense, everyone?
Yeah.
All right, perfect. Okay, so here's the Freighter explanation. So let's now pretend there's Freighter and there's everybody else, and let's pretend that there's the $10,000 levy again, okay? So back when the levy was originally set, for this, I think it dates back to 2019 or 20 or something, is when Freighter first raised the issue. Essentially, Freighter paid, in this example, $3,000, and everyone else paid $7,000. Via the settlement, Freighter is going to get reimbursed. So what that means is Freighter should have paid $1,500 and everybody else should have paid $8,500. So there's that $1,500 gap here, right? And that is what the city is paying back to Freighter, and that we will be via the Department of Revenue charging back to our residents over time. Does that piece make sense too? Okay, so essentially everything became less for them and more for everybody else. Okay, here I got ahead of myself. The other thing can also happen. So what happens when we add property, right? There's oftentimes talk in communities about, well, development is going on and that's going to help the community. So again, this same example with 5 properties in year 1, again, all the same rates, all the same type of property. In year 2, so there's not a reassessment here, but what happened is in year 2, this big developer came in and they put in, I don't know, huge retail store, office buildings or something, right? And that doubled the value of the entire community. People's own residences, their value didn't change, but the value of the community doubled. Taxes did not change. The school district still needs $10,000 in property taxes, but that new office complex is picking up $5,000 of the cost, and residents are picking up $1,000 each, right? So the district still gets $10,000. The business is paying more than property owners here. This is an extreme example, but I think an easy way to explain it. If anyone's familiar with, I think most of us are probably familiar with Epic now. If you go to the doctor, they're always using Epic. This is extreme, but this is kind of what happened in Verona a few years ago. Epic had what they call a TIF district, and many of you might be familiar with that. For a long time, Epic had been essentially exempt from property taxes, and there's an end date with that. And that campus was worth hundreds of millions of dollars. It went on the tax rolls all in 1 year. And what that did is resulted in Epic, who was paying way less, all of a sudden took on a much larger burden of Verona's property taxes, which positively impacted the rest of the residents. So I thought this would be a good opportunity to, I've never walked through that with the board before or community, so I thought this would be a good opportunity to do so.
Appreciate it. Questions or comments?
Following up on the freighter line, no decisions have necessarily been made on how much, because we, as part of one of the tax levying jurisdictions, we have a part to play in paying back freighter for the overtaxation. How is that playing out? Do we have options? Are you still talking with the city on how to deal with it?
So the more research I do, the more layers I find. And my next call now has to be to the Department of Revenue. And what I have found out is, so the Department of Revenue will be, every year they issue a notice to all school districts, and they say, here is the amount you can charge back. For instance, this year it was $11,000. So there was unpaid property taxes last year that totaled $11,000. That's pretty typical. Unless they agree to amortize it for us, which DPI told me has been done in districts before, but I need to actually work with the DOR. What we would like the DOR to do is split that roughly, this ballpark at $3 million over several years so that we don't have to levy the $3 million all at once. If DOR won't do that, our only choice next year will be to, well, I guess our two choices would be to either pay it out of fund balance or collect $3 million all at once. I don't think that's the ideal situation, so trying to work through that with DOR.
Thank you. Good luck. It sounds like we have a lot of decisions that are being made for us, but we don't necessarily have a tremendous amount of power when it comes to the amount of money that the school district receives. So my question to you is, who has that power and who can we leverage, or, well, let's stop there. Who has that power? On how much?
Sure.
money-
Ultimately, the state legislature. So, all levels of government. I don't mind answering the next part of the question either. I think the best way the community can advocate is, community members, I encourage them to talk to their local legislators about school funding. The school board itself has the School Board Association. That's an advocacy group. We have our local legislative action committee of the board. Those are the things that come to mind most quickly.
Absolutely.
So when you mention fund balance as one of the pathways, that would be like borrowing it from the fund balance to spread it out? Is that?
No, it would be it would be just a payment. It would be as if I owed my parents a bunch of money and I had a savings account and they said, pay me back today. And I pulled it out of my savings account now.
Okay.
Or we would have to find $3 million to cut in the regular budgets.
Yes, that would be an option too.
Right. Cut the budget.
Just putting,
Okay. Thank
again,
you.
to no fault of our own. This was just the way that the city collected taxes from freighter, which I understand they were taxing on things that were supposed to not be taxed, right? The nonprofit.
There was a negotiation in
Right.
there.
Yeah,
That we weren't part of.
correct. This was completely between the city and freighter.
Okay. Seeing, yeah, please go ahead.
So in the last slide where you have the big chunk of like commercial property tax income. So my understanding is because other communities have more commercial properties, that makes it so that their residential property taxes are lower.
Yeah, so this is oversimplified.
Okay.
All right. Purposefully, that is, yes, generally true. The wealthier a community gets, the less state aid they get. So there are, it's a more complex algebraic formula, but overly simplified, this is how it works.
This was helpful. Thank you.
Ms. Brzezinski, go ahead.
There's a lot going on here that I'm just holding on to my understanding with. Okay, I'm going back to this table that you had with equalized value and tax rates.
Let me see if I can find that here. I know it's somewhere. Okay,
Yeah, that one, and then on page 2. So tax rate is total levy divided by equalized value.
correct.
So when I'm looking at the equalized value, these are numbers that they're really large. I mean, they're in the.
Yep, so our,
billions.
yeah, it's almost $10 billion in Wauwatosa.
Wait, say that again?
Almost $10 billion.
Yeah, okay. So then is the total levy column missing some digits? I'm just, right, because it's total levy divided by equalized value should give us that $8.56. What,
You multiply that by 1,000
what's,
to,
then,
that's the way people present it.
okay. That was the part.
So
on-
81 million divided by 9 billion
Yeah, okay,
times 1,000 equals your tax rate.
thank you. That, okay. I'm kind
That's
of,
called a mill rate, right?
Correct. Yeah, levy rate, mill rate.
Yes, Mr. Morris. Go ahead.
Mr. Eckert, in here for the community, looking at all the wonderful things you're doing for the school, from the school finance perspective, and doing this research into everything with the settlement with Freighter and all this other stuff. Was there any way to plan for this, to know that this would occur? Because this isn't a new settlement, or it's a new settlement, but this is years in the making to come to this class action to get here. And now we have these other things. We wouldn't have known necessarily, or is it something we would have planned for and had a contingency for?
I don't know how you would. It's so unheard of. And you know, there isn't another medical complex in Wisconsin like this. So it's such a unique set of circumstances. I don't know how you could plan for it. All I could suppose is perhaps the city made the community at large aware that this lawsuit was happening. Maybe they had to do that via open records or something like that. But even if they did that and the district tried to plan around every contingency that could happen, you know, at every other jurisdiction, it would be impossible to run. So I don't see a feasible way we could have planned for it.
Any other comments or questions? Okay, seeing none, Jason, Mr. Waddy, would you please read the motion?
It is recommended that the school board approve certification of the tax levy for 2025-2026, and I so move.
Thank you. May I have a second?
Second.
Thank you, Mr. Morris. Ms. Summers, please call the roll.
Ms. Brzezinski,
yes.
Mr. Bauer,
Yes.
Ms. Bach,
Yes.
Mr. Morris,
Yes.
Ms. Heimer Roland,
Yes.
Dr. Worley,
Yes,
Mr. Wadier,
Yes.
the motion carries. And so we move to 6C, action to approve the 2025-2026 budget.
There's two attachments here, so I want to make sure that I have them correct.
Yeah, take your time.
Oh, okay. I'm going to use the first attachment. The second one is the official adoption paperwork that we submit to the state and provide to you. But the highlights of the budget are on the first page, so I'm going to go back to that. And what I really want to hit on is what our budget accomplishes, because, you know, I probably sound like a broken record, but last year at this time, we had gone through a lot of turmoil. And I really think this budget is it's quite the accomplishment by the board and the district. We have put it, you can see the check marks are next to every item the board had identified as a priority, we've been able to accomplish this year financially. So our largest budget increase is in teacher compensation. That's normal, frankly. I mean, that's where our most staff are, so we would expect that. But that's at about $2.4 million. We've budgeted similar salary increases for all other staff. So all staff getting a raise, right? You remember last year at this time, unfortunately, we had to make big health insurance changes. There is no health insurance, nothing like that this year. We had a standard increase in health insurance, no additional percentages that our staff have to pay. It maintains low, and I think maybe in all cases, I said in many cases, but the lowest or among the lowest class sizes and student to teacher ratios in the region. A main priority of both the board and the community. It invests an additional $400,000 in Division of Economic Performance, specifically toward updated curriculum. And we're going to be, we talked about curriculum last month and again this month. The board voted to draw down our open enrollment. That obviously creates some financial constraints, right? And so then we level set our staff and reduced our staffing to align with the open enrollment drawdown. So all of these things kind of all happening all at once, right? It funds via the referendum, funds our ADA and deferred maintenance projects. That'll be ongoing for the next several years as we complete that referendum, but that is underway. This rebuilds our fund balance by a little over $1.2 million. And it reserves, like we talked about previously, about $500,000 and some flexibility for that payback that's coming. A lot of celebration here and a lot of thanks to our community for supporting the district.
Board members, questions, comments, Mr. Morris?
Question, Mr. Rickman here. When's the last time we were able to rebuild or add to the fund balance in this type of way?
I'd have to go back and look. I'm going to answer that two ways. You did a few years ago when ESSER money was carried. So technically when ESSER money was carried over from one year to the next, I guess that's a little different than in this case, it's pure operating dollars. In that case, it was a grant that we chose to spend later. So before that, I'm going to guess 5 to 7 years ago, probably.
So just for the community there, it's been some time. And if it hadn't been for grant or other money,
correct,
we haven't done this.
Correct.
So on top of all those other things, we were able to put money back.
Yeah,
making drastic changes to take away.
This is the real benefit of this budget, the way it stands now too, is we haven't handcuffed ourselves for next year. So let's say we were putting no money into fund balance. We would be, maybe patting ourselves on the back, but I'd already be concerned about next year. We don't have to approach next year with how are we going to balance this budget? What are we going to have to cut just to get balanced? So we're in a better place than we've been in several years.
Can you also remind us why we need to keep the fund balance, what that does for our financial standing?
Yeah, so maybe more so than the financial standing, I value fund balance in particular with a district like ours with aging buildings so that we have money for things that break. So that to me, that's the most important piece of fund balance. From a credit standpoint, there becomes a point of diminishing returns with ratings. You don't get a better credit rating if you have a 90% fund balance than you do 80. But there's a low threshold where you get sort of dinged. And so we are approaching that low threshold. And so being able to show that we're now purposely putting money back into fund balance is going to keep our credit rating high and keep our cost of borrowing low.
Board members, I wanted to note a table that I had requested and was created by Mr. Ecker. And appreciation that you did this. I just asked this morning, but I thought it might help with visualizing that sort of balance of where we have this money we can put into fund balance. We also know our largest costs are staff. And I wanted you to have this and it basically what it portrays is if you spend this percent more on staff, then this is what you have left in the fund balance. And I thought that might be helpful for you all to have as you ask your questions.
And
Yeah, Mr. Whiting.
just to clarify, in this chart and with the approximate $1.2 million surplus, that is after delivering what was promised with the operating referendum.
Correct.
Okay, just making that abundantly clear, because we'll have discussion about that topic and either today or is it today or well, it's the amount is budgeted, and if we change that, this table represents how much we would reduce that 1.2 million to.
Correct. We made, I'm trying to recollect, I know it's on the website, but I believe it was 3 promises regarding the operating. It was increase in pay for staff, in particular teachers. It was maintain class sizes, and it was maintain programs. Did I miss any?
Curriculum.
And curriculum, thank you.
Therefore.
So 4 promises, and this delivers on all 4 of those.
So when you're looking at this, the first line is what is in the proposed budget. And then any line after that shows what if we were to increase the salary schedule by 1/10.
And to be clear, my question / statement is if we do not choose, we've already met what was promised to the community in this budget. And if there is anything additional, it would come out in compensation for any staff. It would come out of this $1.2 million.
Right.
And that would be in addition to what was promised with the referendum. And that
Correct.
it
would be above and beyond.
Perfectly clear that anything like we have budgeted everything that was promised for the operating referendum. Thank you.
Yes, Mr. Bauer, go ahead.
To layer on another complicating issue and to ask Mr. Eckert to look into his crystal ball, the federal government currently is shut down. And we talked a little bit about this in our LAC meeting about how that could affect our budgets, our expenses. Could you talk a little bit about how the closure of the federal government at that level affects, say, free and reduced lunch? And that's fun.
So it hasn't affected it yet. And I know the shutdown is getting a lot of media publicity. And I don't want to diminish that. But the government has shut down multiple times in the last decade. And generally speaking, in at least Wisconsin school districts have been largely immune from that federal issue. I suppose if it did stretch on for, months, it certainly could impact us. I don't think as much as it impacts those employees, though, that are, furloughed or, not getting paid. What I'd recommend is this isn't probably the question you're asking, but if we have people that their income is impacted by the shutdown, I would encourage them to apply for free and reduced lunch. That application can come at any time. It's not based on W-2 or previous year's income. It's based on what your income is today. And we'd be able to provide some relief to those families.
Sure, but there is free and reduced lunch is partially sponsored by Medicaid, or SNAP benefits, right?
Correct. Well, we get, honestly, I don't know exactly which funding mechanism the federal government uses to reimburse us, but we get federal reimbursement for lunch.
Oh, okay. But you don't think that would necessarily affect our budget?
It hasn't in the past.
Yeah, go ahead, Liz.
Thank you for bringing that up, that families can apply for reduced lunch at any time. Could we send maybe something in a newsletter or just social media?
Social media campaigns
Okay, perfect.
to address this.
I would never have even thought of it, so that is, helpful to some.
Which
of
if
the
they
families.
qualify, there's some other benefits like fees and other things that they may not need to pay going into the second.
Total, make sure that social media.
Fantastic. Thank you.
So I think the question you were trying to ask maybe was, do we as a board need to consider that there might, just like the boiler might go in some building, that there might be some
Right.
costs that we would bear at least temporarily with the federal government. So I think that's what.
That was my underline.
I think Mr. Becker, is an amazing CFO. He answered your question from a CFO perspective.
Mhm.
If the government shutdown extends for a long period of time, there may be families who do not have food beyond the accessibility of free and reduced lunch. So part of that social media campaign will be to alert families of food pantries that are in the metropolitan area that is accessible. But some school systems are starting to have conversations, Mr. Bauer, of providing weekend bags of food for
We did
families.
during COVID.
Correct. So we don't know how long the shutdown will be. Our first layer of support will be to direct families to food pantries and to help them access those food pantries first. But if this goes into 3-4 months, that may not be sufficient. And those food pantries eventually will be overran as well. So from a social emotional teacher lens, I am always in the back of my head thinking, so then what is our next step into step 2 or 3? So what Ms. Heimer-Rollin asked about, what you're asking about is really, and what Mr. Ecker answered is really step 1. So again, I want to thank Mr. Pinion and our comms team for having a social media campaign that will address stage 1 of accessibility. But I'm already starting to think about, and I want to give kudos to Ms. Holland. Ms. Holland alerted us to say, we have to start thinking about step 2. And what happens if this goes into the holidays or even into the new calendar year? I believe that's what you're asking.
Yeah.
Yes.
Eventually, we may get there.
I hope we don't, but we have to
You did a
prepare
plan.
for the worst.
There's a timeline where we do have to be concerned about that,
Yes.
which plays.
Media also just ran a story about how many food pantries were hurt by flooding. So we also have in this particular region, a weekend food pantry system. So it's something for us to be prepared about as a school district. Okay, any other comments or questions about the budget? Okay. Seeing none, Ms. Brzezinski, you have the motion if you'd like to be willing to read it.
Yes, it is recommended that the school board approve the 2025-2026 budget, and I so move.
May I have a second?
I'll second.
I'll give that to Ms. Bach. Ms. Summers, please call the roll.
Ms. Brzezinski,
Yes.
Mr. Bauer,
Yes.
Ms. Bach. Yes. Mr. Morris,
Yes.
Ms. Heimer-Roland,
Yes.
Dr. Worley,
Yes,
Mr. Wadier.
Yes.
and the motion carries.
Madam President, I want to thank Mr. Ecker. I want to thank Ms. Anchor. You met her last month. I want to thank Sarah Zelazowski and her team as well. Because as Mr. Ecker referenced, the vast majority of where we spend our funds is with human resources. And often in a school system, we are notified when things don't go well with finances. What Mr. Ecker just shared with you, and I appreciate the question, Mr. Morris. What we just accomplished here was a lot of heavy lifting. Our cabinet met in the middle of the school year, last school year, to make cuts in the school year. Ms. Zelazowski made sure that we accomplished everything we said, Mr. Wadier, around the operational referendum. So we are frankly, we're pleased that we were able to deliver on the direction you gave us to replenish the fund balance. Our goal initially was $1 million. So to get to 1.2, we're pleased. So I wanted.
No, thank you for that. And I want
wanted to
to
thank him publicly.
Yeah.
I
Thank you,
want to
Mr.
thank Ms.
Acker.
Anker and Ms. Elizalski.
And Dr. Means, thank you for your leadership on your team as well for a lot of engagement and input, collaboration that was rooted, that's below all of this work. But thank you, Mr. Acker, for both what you've done and the explanations that you give so that all of us can really see, and it's very transparent what is being done and why.
You're welcome.
Just try not to have a prison in your next,
Does not have a what?
try not to have a prison in the next exam.
I was trying to think of an example that everyone would not want.
Thank you very much.
Garbage dump maybe would have been.
Truly appreciate your leadership.
Well, after all that heavy lifting, now we move to item 6D, monthly financial report.
If it pleases the board, I've been going through these charts and graphs one by one for 13 or 14 months at this point. There's also a flip presentation where I talk through it. Again, if it pleases the board, I won't go through the slide one by one. I'll highlight a few things for you, and anyone that wants to watch the presentation can do that right through board docs. Is that?
I think that makes sense.
Yep.
Yeah.
We also talked about it. We talked
At
about
the finance committee, yep.
If anybody wants.
And that's
to
also recorded.
They can watch it. Dig right in.
Perfect. So I'll just summarize by saying we're right on track. We're trending slightly better than budget. Meaning if the fiscal year ended today, we would end slightly better than the $1.2 million. So that's where we want to be, trending better. The one area of concern I had, purchase services, has essentially evened itself out. So very pleased with that. And I'll point out again that one reason we're trending better is because our salaries and benefits appear as if they're going to end less than we budgeted. That is because we haven't given raises to people yet. So the board has approved a budget. The board has not approved raises for any employee class. And so everyone is working right now at the same rate that they had last year. Obviously, our algorithm doesn't know that. And so it thinks we're going to slightly underspend on our salaries. That will get caught up once the board approves salary raises and we do back pay or catch-up pay.
Thank you. Any comments or questions?
When is the board expected to vote on the salary?
Ms. Summers is polling the board right now for your availability the week of November 3rd.
Okay. And then how long from when we vote on that to when teachers or staff members see any back pay?
That's a great question, Ms. Brzezinski. Our cautious answer to you is by the first pay period in December.
Okay.
So we pay on the 15th and 30th of each month. So on or before the 15th of December.
No, we're saying that's our cautious, conservative response. If we can meet next week, Monday, that gives our team more days to start working and get things. But I don't want to over promise. So the first pay period in December.
Okay.
Excellent. Thank you. Okay, we will move on to 6E, presentation of student enrollment report and updated enrollment projections for 2025, 2026.
As the transition's happening, you received a report from Mr. Ecker last month from a financial perspective on the third Friday count. But Mr. Pinion is our leader of all things enrollment count-wise. So he's going to give you headlines from the report that we had from a enrollment trends perspective. And you may have questions. We provided the data to you. This in the board docs. So Mr. Pinion, thank you for your leadership.
And thank you for having me. You heard 2 weeks ago sort of this high level overview from a business office perspective of ultimately the numbers or the number that informs how much money's coming in. Tonight, we wanted to give just a little bit of a deeper dive in a format that you have been accustomed to as a board as well as a community. Before I give you the headlines, if you will, just wanted to give a little bit of background information. The attachment is very robust, and this is a format that has been used, I believe, in TOSA. My assistant who has since retired said 25 years ago, this was the format that was given. It does not align with where the state has sort of moved in how we pull enrollment, what we report. So this report will look different in future years, not only to minimize the sheer hours of manpower in the manual lift required, but also I believe this can be presented in a much more community and board friendly manner. Right now it exists as 15 tabs, very confusing, a lot of lingo behind it, a lot of nuances. Some even I have to dive deep to fully understand, and some that may have been left blank because the lift is just too extreme to fill them out in its entirety. So just know that I preface tonight with the fact that this will be more consumable and friendly in future years. Also, this is the first year the Department of Public Instruction has pulled our enrollment or third Friday count in 2 different ways. This was supposed to be completed last year in 2 ways. They delayed a year, but we have always done more of a manual poll, which again requires a lot of collaboration, a lot of individuals, a lot of assistants work to pull all of the data. People might think it seems really easy, just count the heads. It's much more complicated than that. And they're also doing an auto poll from Infinite Campus directly. They're telling us that this is the last year they'll do it and the only year they'll do it 2 ways. And in future years, it will be solely an automatic poll from student information systems across the state of Wisconsin in 420 some districts. As you can imagine, this is a test year of that, and we are learning a lot when it comes to that automatic pull in Infinite Campus, what needs to happen behind the scenes, all of the nuances and intricacies with all the different types of enrollment, student movement, et cetera, from all things open enrollment, part-time, full-time, tuition waiver, transfers, all of the things. So I kind of give you that backdrop, as well as this is a very collaborative process. Enrollment is one of those pieces that, although in our office, we are sort of in the weeds and the hands-on helping parents register, enroll, get in, move across different spaces. This certainly touches the finance world. We work closely with their office as well as the HR world when it comes to open enrollment, projections, class sizes, all that. So we all have a different bit of a hand in this. And my office has the pleasure of kind of helping coordinate and structure it moving forward. So with the highlights, and I won't pull it up again because it's 15 tabs and I'm going to be bouncing around a very complex document. I want to bucket the headlines maybe in 3 categories. One is resident enrollment, bucket number 1. Headline would be total resident enrollment has increased 44 heads, 44 students. Of that, we know at the high school level, West went down in enrollment, about 24, East went up in enrollment, about 57. That is not attributed to interdistrict transfers. We are following the new policy. We are above the 100 differential for allowing transfers, so that number is not contributed to that. So just want to be clear for the community. We have also pretty much have a stable tuition waiver. What I mean by that is we're seeing a similar amount of students and families move out of the district and then apply for a tuition waiver, and families are getting better at completing that appropriate paperwork with the state, with us, because they then are allowed to stay either through the current year or the additional year. But we're seeing that number fairly stable across the last few years. Bucket number 2 is open enrollment and non-resident. And I want to be clear for everyone the distinction there. When we say non-resident and when you see the data behind non-resident, that means both open enrollment students who may be experiencing homelessness or are unhoused under McKinney-Vento, or students who may be enrolled here due to foster care and it being the best interest determination for the student. So the non-resident bucket is a larger bucket. The total non-resident numbers went down about 205, which 194 of that was through open enrollment. The decision of the board was intentional, was expected. And we have no more students who would be under Chapter 220. So that there's no data there as well. The last highlight is really the total or the grand total tab on there. So when you pull it all together, what are the grand totals? We are down about 161 students. Again, we anticipated that, predicted that, and we were prepared for that, not only in our office, but financially as well. When you break down that 161, we are 2 less at the secondary and 159 less at the elementary. So you kind of see where that movement filtered from one year to the next. Not surprising. Again, we expected that. And when you look at the overall total enrollment, again, most of it is at the elementary. The only school where that total enrollment went up was Underwood, also likely by design because we shifted boundaries that went into effect this year from Eisenhower to Underwood. So that is not unexpected. So again, it's a lot of information that can be very complex and pull you into the weeds really quickly, but I wanted to make sure you sort of had a general understanding of those buckets. You can see the breakdowns by school. I'm happy to answer or try to answer or take a question and get back to you if I need to. But those are your headlines from the enrollment report.
Thank you. It's great to have this report. I'm very open to it being made more readable and accessible to everyone. So we're looking forward to that, and we appreciate the headlines. Are there questions? Yes, Ms. Hamarola.
No, well, yes, one question. First of all, I think it's great to see that our resident enrollment is actually increasing.
Absolutely.
There is, you know, the rumor mill likes to say that we're losing a lot of our residents to either private schools or they're leaving the district to go to other districts. So that to me is maybe the most exciting highlight that you shared. So thank you for breaking that down for us. My question is, do you think, I saw in the last 2 years, there's been more effort from the district to recruit students to our schools? So like, really highlighting when registration is, the open houses, the many events for elementary students. Do you attribute those efforts to this increase, or hard to say?
I can't disconnect it.
Yeah.
We've been so intentional. Even now, we've started having conversations with our communications director about doing some things even earlier, teaming stronger with her, really targeting that 4K or JKSK earlier on, really emphasizing lights on TOSA. So I like to believe, I don't have data to say that correlation is causing it, but I have to believe the efforts are helping that number and just showing what we have to offer in our schools.
Kudos. I do think those events probably are attributing at least a part of it. So thank you to your team for hosting those and coming up with a plan to keep our kiddos in our schools.
I know we're also starting to use, I think, virtual more for retention of students. Is that part of why we're seeing the increase there?
So yes, we saw 42 more students, at least at this snapshot compared to the last snapshot at this time in 2024, 42 more in virtual. That we will always have a virtual space for students and a thoughtful process to offer education there. Being one who is reviewing all of those requests, I see the majority of our virtual requests coming from a physical or mental health standpoint.
So this helps them
I
stay
think the
in
need
school.
is only increasing.
It helps them stay in school and stay in the district.
That continuity, yep, you can continue accessing more flexibility, but we are thoughtful as well because it can be used for great purposes and it can be used to evade attendance, compulsory attendance. There are other reasons too. So we're cautious and we have processes in place to make sure we don't lose students in that virtual space as well.
Good. Other comments or questions? Mr. Bauer and then Mr. Morris.
One of the things that I would always like to keep an eye on is the balance between East and West.
Absolutely.
And I note that there's about 150 more students over at East than there is West. The difference is a little bit more stark if we compare only Longfellow and Whitman, noting that Montessori is a K-8 program. Can you talk a little bit about the balance between the two schools and how we can expect that to go over time? And if there's anything that we need to adjust from a policy point of view?
Absolutely. So my first 2 years in this seat, I was approving transfer requests east because I was following the policy and they were under 100. Going into this year, back in April, when we were making and reviewing all of the interdistrict transfer IDT requests, it was the first year we were projecting over 100. So this was the first year I started having to really deny those. So we are holding a tight line, at least on that lever that we have some control over and following the board policy, which is sort of why I gave that caveat early on, is that it's not a result of IDTs. There was just a very small couple that were accepted due to extreme or more safety circumstances that had to be approved, but those will be denied. And really it comes down to, we do know more people live on the east side. When we run the numbers of just residency and enrollment, we have a couple hundred more students on that side, and that bubble will look different every cohort, every year. Otherwise, it comes down to policy 50-120 in our boundary lines. I've had a lot of conversations, as I know school administrative assistants at McKinley have, about that split boundary, what that means. We are seeing a little bit of a shift in a trend. We used to have a lot of families IDT to Whitman, so they could stay in that cohort from McKinley to Whitman to West. We're seeing more families just opt to take that Longfellow to West Path, but we are very clear up front. That does not create any exception to the policy, but they do have that right to follow that path if they're east of 92nd Street. Other than
It's a
that,
great reminder that it's your elementary resident district, not your middle school resident district that predicts your high school.
Yeah.
I think people often.
so we want to be very clear and transparent about how that works and when years ahead of the decision they're making today, how that might play out at different transition levels. But it is something we will need to pay attention to and keep eyes on and monitoring the trend because we want to keep and maintain that balance where we have our ability to. But 5120 is really the mechanism where boundary lines are outlined and those paths are established at the board level.
Sure. And the biggest mechanism that this body has to force the balance between east and west is those boundary lines.
Yes.
At what point does the discrepancy between east and west grow so large that we seriously need to start talking through that conversation?
We would have to look deeply at capacity and then also the future direction with the ad hoc, what the recommendation is where the board, I wouldn't want to jump too far on that train or conclusions without knowing what the future of 712 looks like.
I mean, I think one of the places that one looks is that potentially when you have a lot fewer students, there may be fewer classes or curriculum that you can offer. And so, yeah, no, I mean, but this is actually, from my understanding, working and well balanced compared to where it was before the board that made the decision.
Absolutely. I'm
Way
not
back.
suggesting.
Yeah,
that
no,
we
but
seriously look at it. I just want to make sure that it is a topic that we frequent and we have those conversations.
It's something to pay attention to year by year in the trend for sure.
Thank you.
And Mr. Pinion, policy 5120 was just updated and maybe fine tuned a little bit this fall
Correct.
after enrollment was already laid out for this school year.
Correct. It was updated. However, it is somewhat queued. We are making sure the boundary lines match for 2930 when the areas over by Jefferson and Roosevelt are shifting. So we will be bringing that back to make sure that is reflected as well. It was updated. However, the inter-district transfer decisions that I will make, the bulk of those will happen now in alignment with that policy between February and March. Prior to this year, those happened between March and April. So really all the IDT decisions were under the old language, whereas this next wave of inter-district transfers will be under the new language in February.
Do you think that new language will be more supportive in maintaining more balance?
Yes, 100%. Again, where we have some control outside of just the boundary lines, that will make a difference, especially just knowing over the last few years, I was signing yes to the IDTs for East and now I'm signing no. So right there, that will make a difference, as well as the language that this board landed on and that I helped craft regarding appropriate versus more favorable reasons for asking for those transfers. So I do believe that policy will make a difference, and where we'll see it the most, we take a snapshot for all inter-district transfers at one moment in time every fall. Now that snapshot represents history. It could be a transfer from 8 years ago that's still showing up because they're not in the school in which they live in. That is where we'll see the most sort of impact of that policy over the next 5-10 years of how that trickles every year and changes the movement that is happening across all levels. That's a long answer, long way of saying yes, it will make a difference, but it will take a while to really show it.
Plus, we're making some of those other boundary line changes, though those shouldn't impact east and west.
Yeah, I mean,
significant.
Those smaller ones won't have impacts east or west wise, but that's another reason, to Mr. Bauer's point, to pay attention to that trend.
Okay.
I mean, a factor that's happening too, that we as a district, so we had that conversation about, taxes and levies. Well, we as a district don't have any control over the density of property, housing that's available. These are all factors that help to drive where people live and how many people can live. And the west side is generally less dense, densely populated than the east side. So that's going to have an impact.
And I see a lot of opportunity when the ultimate, decision of this board about what 7 through 12 looks like. That will open up other potential areas to look at, consider, come back to the table and understand. I mean, that's going to really help guide versus right now kind of, don't want to do anything too drastic or recommend or make too many assumptions without knowing what that's going to look like.
I think it's great to just what Ms. Heimer Rollins said. My understanding was that a fair number of districts have seen a decline this year, and that it's not typical to even see the increase that we
44 is a good number for resident increase.
The MD Roffers demographic study said 2 years ago, we would see a slight increase over the next few years. So in talking with Mr. Nick Johnson from Roffers, he is very proud of the exact amount that their predictions are coming true from that report. And then I would be remiss if I did not mention, I think I was meeting with Ms. Bach and just discussing the important work of a board. Policy 5120, when it was revised in the late 1990s, was a significant issue in this community. And if you lived here at the time, you know what that looked like. If you didn't live here, you've heard the stories of what that was about. And while that was a very difficult decision by that board at that time, can you imagine what the imbalance between Wauwatosa East and Wauwatosa West would be today without those changes? And so it's just a testimony to we don't say thank you enough to the board. We know you do hard work and you're confronted with, in some cases, wicked problems as we describe them in social science. But what Mr. Pinion is sharing with you is I think Mr. Barr, I would say we are as close to balance as we have ever had between East and West. And I think the past policy committee members would joke, boy, we're talking about 5120 again. But
it's coming back.
It's coming back, and it will come back again.
It's one of our core policies.
Because it's one of your, yes, you took the words out of my mouth, Dr. Worley. It is one of your core policies to be responsive to the community.
I think it's also helpful to acknowledge that we got good help with enrollment. You and your staff got way out a lot sooner. We had support from the PTAs at many schools, and just really getting the word out about how and when to enroll is super important, that we continue that practice of being out there and talking about our district. I think the tours that just happened of high schools, all of these are pieces that will help us to maintain our enrollment, if not enlarge it over the next several years.
And I know I'm biased, but we have, not even dipping into academics, we have really so much to offer students when it comes to their social, emotional, and mental wellness in this system, I believe, relative to a lot of our neighbors.
Ms. Summers deserves a lot of credit. She is the main convener of our JKSK registration events in January. And they're fun, and we draw on a lot. I think many of you've been there for some of them. And she even creates and has a petting zoo, an indoor petting zoo in January that draw on kids. So we try our best.
We'll be sure to follow the animals on district property policy.
That is policy.
Yes.
Yes, Mr. Morris.
One question for you, Mr. Pinion, regarding the attendance numbers for Vel Phillips. Are those seem to be pretty stable there? I always look at that and I'm always curious if there is any, I don't even know the word, recidivism. Like, do those students ever go from, if they are 9-10 there, do they end up back in East or West?
A lot of fluidity. We could probably give you an hour master class on just enrollment at Vel Phillips alone. They're somewhat stable. I'd say over time they've been increasing. This is why Vel is in the midst, near the end of a major reconstruction project at Vel to create more space. There were times students were sleeping on the floors at Vel Phillips, literally. So they are near the end of a big construction project to create more space. Although I don't have the exact numbers in front of you, fairly stable, but slight increases from my time here, from how I understand
it. I would tell you, Mr. Morris, is that unfortunately, that is the one educational institution where we don't want to see numbers increase, but they have. And they have because of the court backload. And so in talking with the administrators at Vel Phillips, and let me pause. I think for the community's sake, anytime a child resides in a community, that's public school district is responsible for the education of said child. Since we have the juvenile detention center in Wauwatosa. We're responsible for young people who are under custody at that facility. The number has been going up, and the backlog with the court system is creating a system where the administrators are anticipating those students staying longer than normal.
Yes, they range anywhere from being there for a day, a couple days, all the way to over a year or more, or out and then back in. And they are continually looking at and revising and updating how they serve students, especially during this reconstruction phase where they might be at different levels of accessibility depending on what program students are in. But they are prepared to serve students regardless of the stint of time.
It's getting to a point now, Mr. Morris, where it's getting concerning. We have, you all watch the news. There's some high profile juvenile cases where those young people have literally been with us for years, multiple years. And that's normal. That wasn't the way that Valar Phillips used to function.
And they're seeing longer stays.
So it's causing some curricular issues for us because those students are receiving curriculum for the fourth or fifth time. But yes, I mean, I appreciate you highlighting that. It's a concern for us.
Yes, Mrs. Buck.
Could you talk briefly about the hospital numbers and how those students affect our enrollment and how stable those numbers?
So I haven't dug too deep into the history of the children's numbers. I visit there once or twice a year when I can. And this is the same obligation that Dr. Mean spoke to in terms of once the student is in that capacity and we know they're going to be there, we have an obligation. So not only is there the classroom, but then they do bedside care as well for education. I don't know the trend data for that right off the top of my head, but I'd be happy to get back to you.
You. Anyone else? Seeing no other questions from board student members, do you have, at any time, if you have questions, we often turn to student members when the board members have run out of comments or questions. You don't have to have any, but just so you know the flow. Excellent. So feel free to raise your hand too if I forget to ask you. Okay. Thank you, Mr. Pinion. We'll move on to 6F, action to approve the proposal to increase FTE for the 2025-2026 school year, funded through transfer of service. That would be Ms. Zelazowski. Thank you for being here.
Absolutely. Good evening again. Are there any follow-up questions from our last conversation?
Okay, seeing no follow-up questions. Students, we often have things come twice, so we've discussed this one quite extensively. If community members are watching, just this is a way that we're asking for this, or they're asking for this in HR, because we have some students that have joined our district that have particular needs. And we need this additional FTE in order to meet their needs. So I believe Mr. Bauer.
So it is recommended that the school board approve the proposal to increase FTE for the 2025-2026 school year, funded through transfer of service, and I so move.
May I have a second?
Second.
Thank you, Mr. Morris. Ms. Summers, could you call the roll, please?
Ms. Brzezinski?
Yes.
Mr. Bauer?
Yes.
Ms. Bach?
Yes.
Mr. Morris?
Yes.
Ms. Heimer Roland?
Yes.
Dr. Worley?
Yes.
Mr. Wadier?
Yes.
And the motion carries.
Thank you. We will start putting those extra supports in place right away.
Absolutely. And just a reminder, this is not that it wasn't changing the budget, just in case community members weren't here for that discussion last time. Letter G, 6G, action to approve the additional limited purpose flexible spending accounts for employees.
Thank you. Again, this proposal would create an opportunity for employees to set aside pre-tax dollars for out-of-pocket costs for the voluntary vision plan and dental plan as employee benefits. There were two questions that I did not have the answers to at our prior conversation. One was related to whether or not employees have access to the full amount that they allocate prior to making the full deposits into the limited purpose flexible spending account. And the answer to that question is yes. If I elect for $500 over the course of the year to be deposited to my limited purpose flexible spending account, I have access to that $500 as of January 1, 2026, even though I will continue making payments towards that throughout the year in terms of payroll deposits. The second question was related to the run out period or the claim period for the funds that that employees deposit into their accounts. Employees have from January 1, so the first date of the plan, to 15 months later. So January 1, 2026 to March 1, February or April 1 of 2027 in order to claim the funds that they've deposited. So they have a 15-month runway to claim all of the funds that they've opted to deposit pre-tax into their accounts. And those were all the questions that I recall from our prior conversation.
Thank you for bringing those updates. Board members, questions, comments?
And again, this is at a very low cost to us or to the district.
It is. If any employee currently has a dependent care flexible spending account, there is no additional cost to the district to be able to add these contributions. For new employees who wish to make deposits to an account like this, it is a $3 annual cost.
Okay.
Okay, not seeing any other comments or questions. Ms. Bach, I believe you have this one.
It is recommended that the school board approve the addition of limited purpose flexible spending accounts for employees, and I so move.
May I have a second?
Second.
Thank you, Mr. Wadier. Ms. Summers, please call the roll.
Ms. Brzezinski?
Yes.
Mr. Bauer?
Yes.
Ms. Bach?
Yes.
Mr. Morris?
Yes.
Ms. Heimer Roland?
Yes.
Dr. Worley?
Yes,
Mr. Wadier?
Yes.
the motion carries. Board members, would you like a stretch break for
Yes, please.
10 minutes? We'll start again at 8 o'clock. So we are ready to go on with item number 7, strategic goal instruction and leadership. Letter A, action to approve adoption of courses of study, policy 2220. Thank you for being here.
Yeah, hello everyone. Good evening, Jessica Ebert, Director of Curriculum, and I'm here joined with Liza Weber, our K-12 Math Curriculum Coordinator, as well as Katie Crivello, our Secondary Humanities Coordinator. In 2 weeks, my voice hasn't improved.
I'm sorry to hear your voice hasn't returned yet.
Hopefully we'll hang in there. So this evening, the board will be asked to take action on 3 policies related to curriculum and instruction, which were introduced and presented to the board on October 13th, 2025. These policies are policy 2220, adoption of courses of study, policy 2510, adoption of textbooks and primary curricular resources. And within 2510 is policy 6320, just saying where applicable. It is important to note that all of the recommended changes were not made lightly. The research, planning, teaming with educators, communicating with various stakeholders, decision-making protocols were all a part of these changes. As part of the process for policy 2510, adoption of textbooks, primary curricular resources, curriculum materials were made available for public review following the presentation on October 13th. During that time, other than board members, 0 community members reviewed the materials in person, nor did we receive any community questions or comments regarding the recommended resources during that time. Additionally, aside from board members, we have received 0 community questions or comments regarding policy 2220, the adoption of courses of study during this 2-week window. Before we proceed with any additional questions or comments from the Board of Education, I want to take a moment to set the broader purpose behind this work. While individual student experiences often surface in our conversations, which is both natural and important, the purpose of our conversations and the proposed changes lies in the systems and structures we aim to build. These structures ensure equity, consistency, and intentionality in how learning opportunities are designed and delivered across all classrooms. At the same time, we know the success of any model or pathway ultimately depends on the conditions we create in the classroom. How teachers plan, use data, monitor learning outcomes, and differentiate instruction has the greatest impact on student learning. The changes we have recommended aligned to policy reflect our continued commitment to aligning pathways, structures, and resources, while simultaneously strengthening classroom practices, ensuring that all students benefit from coherent, equitable, and high-level learning experiences. Let Nicole kind of chime in here with a few additional details.
Hi, Nicole Marble, Chief Academic Officer. I just want to remind the board that the courses that you are looking to approve this evening are posted on the display board. I also just want to thank publicly yet again, Ms. Ebert and our curriculum coordinators that within the last 24 months, we have collectively as a team brought forward 3 of the 4 core content areas to the board. That has been a mountain of work, but we felt very necessary to expedite that work to be able to get in front of students and make their learning experience more robust and rigorous. So I just wanted to reiterate that within the last 24 months, we have brought 3 of the 4 core, and we look forward to bringing social studies in the near future. What questions might you have for us?
Yes, Mr. Bauer, go ahead.
Thank you. So this is, I think, a handful of questions that came out of Wednesday's conversation last week, where I fielded some questions about the math curriculum. And what I realized in doing that is that while I have access to you and Dr. Means, among others, to ask the questions I have to make sure that we are making a sound decision, a lot of that doesn't happen publicly. So I'd like to ask you a couple of questions that realistically were asked of me that we can kind of go through real quick and put it on the record. Is that fair? So the first part that I have would be, we're switching models of how to teach math. That's fairly dramatic. So what is the concern of the current system, and what does success look like with the new model?
I can start, and then I will bring in our resident math expert to plug the holes wherever so the crux of this, the same standards that are taught in the traditional algebra, geometry, algebra 2 are still being taught. We are simply rearranging the order in which they are taught so that there is a greater conceptual understanding of the math standards that rely on algebra to be built off of, to have geometry standards built off of those where it makes sense. Also, if we look at our ACT data, one of the domains in which our students are not performing as high as we would like is in algebra. And what we can do with an integrated approach is weave the algebra standards through all the way in integrated 1, integrated 2, and integrated 3 if we get to that point. Right now, those algebra standards only live in algebra in that one isolated year. Ms. Weber, I'll turn it over to you if there's anything else you'd like to add.
I think just to echo that, I guess sort of even in the way that you've phrased the question, I think it sounds like, when it came to you, that the feeling maybe was that this is a very drastic change in the approach. While the integrated model is different than the algebra, geometry, algebra 2, students will be learning the same standards in a different but intentional resequencing of concepts. So if you compared, for example, the illustrative math scope and sequence, which names the units and the topics of every unit in algebra, geometry, algebra 2 sequence, compared to an integrated 1, integrated 2, integrated 3 sequence, you would see most of the same math just reordered. So when the math is happening. So this is a visual example of that. The one on the right is the algebra, geometry, algebra 2. The one on the left is those same units, just in a different sequence. So while it is different and intentional, it's not drastically different math or units or topic coverage. So just to clarify that.
I'll just chime into that. Integrated math is what our students experience in kindergarten through 8th grade. And so when we think it's so drastic, it's so different, our students are experiencing math in that way right now, all the way through their mathematical journey until they reach high school. So just another way to think about what that looks like.
Thank you for that. So we know what success looks like, what we're driving towards, right? Better understanding in math using a system that has been shown to be more successful. Where has it been shown to be more successful? I'll stop there. Where has it been shown?
If we look globally, Japan, Finland, Singapore, and Canada all utilize this approach. A number of states have also adopted the integrated approach, including Utah, West Virginia, North Carolina, Georgia, and Maryland. And then within our state, the key districts that have moved in this direction are Waukesha, Pewaukee, Franklin, and Wausau. Shout out to my hometown. And there are a number of school districts that are exploring this alongside us as well.
And then just to add on to that, a question that's come our way is, do colleges recognize this as a rigorous course or equivalent? And the answer to that is yes, that colleges see this. They see this from high school transcripts. They're aware of this, right? We're not the first people to do this. And that just like any course, we would be naming the standards that we cover in the course. And colleges would be able to understand that the standards that we're covering in these courses are the same as the standards we would be covering in an algebra, geometry, algebra 2 sequence.
And I really wanted to launch the conversation this evening, again, grounding in, I think it's a both and, right? Systems and structures are really, really important, and designing systems and structures around what makes sense in terms of the learning experience is really important for us to be thinking about. And what really moves success forward for student learning and understanding is what happens day in and day out in the student experience. So just kind of keeping that balance in mind. I mean, we can continue with an algebra, geometry, algebra 2 model, but what really is important is the way in which our teachers design instruction, check for understanding, monitor successive learning outcomes. That's what drives success. And so I just want to make sure it's a both and. Systems and structures are really, really important, and we design learning for that. And it's really important that we continue to support our educators in the improvement of the day in and day out conditions that they create in the classroom.
So taking an element of that, the first element of what you just said, I'll come back to the second element about teachers in a second, but in the new system that we are moving towards, or you're proposing that we move towards, there's a gift and talent program where we advance students through the math program jumps, right? Where if you're 99th percentile, you jump forward. We have additional supports teaching the bottom 10th percentile. So what happens in the, hey, I'm good at math, or I'm maybe 80th percentile, I'm good at math, I can see myself being good at math. How are we pushing them forward in this system? Similarly, how are we pushing students forward who are maybe 25th percentile, right? On the other end of that.
Start unless you want to jump in right away. All right. We have different layers of support. So we have what we call tier 2 layers, where the teacher differentiates within the classroom and the resources that are on the table for being adopted also have some really strong differentiation tools built into them so that the teacher isn't left to his or her own devices and how to meet the different student learning needs. So there's a lot of support for the teachers within the resource itself to be able to identify those needs. Furthermore, there's some different assessment tools that can be leveraged to be able to really pinpoint what skills need additional attention. And that would be, again, something within the actual resource that would be able to support our differentiation.
Yeah, so I would say across our system, right, at every level of math, there is a full range of learner continuum. And so it's a few layers. So part of it is what courses do we offer? So for students at the elementary level, for example, there are academic specialists in place who offer tier 3 academic support for kids who need a dose of math in addition to their core universal instruction. That then, moves up into middle school where there's an academic lab. And then in high school, we support students through a course called Math Emphasis. So courses can support kids in unique needs. There are times that the need is not significant enough to warrant a different course or separate course, right? And we continuously as a school district are working to align to ensure that our identification processes match appropriate services for kids, and that's across a full range of learner continuum. So there are some students whose needs aren't significant enough to require a separate or additional class. We have the opportunity from kindergarten through 8th grade to layer instructional opportunities on top of the core universal instruction through a block that we call win time. So it's minutes that are on top of the core instructional minutes that are required. The new resources that we're proposing tonight provide components to provide teacher guidance and also tools to support learners across that continuum via the math teacher. Specifically in the secondary math curriculum, there's a component called Building on Student Thinking that provides teachers with guidance for real-time ways to build upon students' ideas, as well as Are You Ready for More, which is essentially an extension set of problems that, again, teachers can either ahead of time prepare as a result of students' formative or summative assessment, or they can implement that in real time when they're noticing that a kiddo is ready for more and needs an additional extension problem set. And then the same is true at elementary. One of the nice features of I know we're kind of trying to separate the courses from the curriculum, but it's really hard to talk about the courses and implementing it without talking about the tools we utilize to do that. At the elementary level, embedded within the resource as in response to assessment data, teachers are provided with guidance and tools, including mini lessons for small group instruction for both intervention and extension. So the tools that we have in these resources are far better than the ones we're currently working with today. And then in addition to that, both resources include tools to support learners with disabilities, as well as multilingual learners. So there's a wide range of strategies and tools embedded in those resources to ensure that teachers have what they need, paired with coaching and strong professional development to support the wide, range and continuum of learners that we see and that we would continue to expect to see at every grade level year after year.
I'm trying not to talk so much, but I feel like I can't help it. Something that I just want to add on. So we've held 2 math community sessions and engaged deeply with people who have attended those math community sessions to learn about the changes, and then have had follow-up conversations. And I think something that has really stemmed from that dialogue is every family's desire to ensure that regardless of the changes that we have in front of our community, that their child will be engaged in math learning. Not necessarily, I care that they're in this level of math or this level of math, but can we ensure that there is a level of engagement for my child that feels purposeful and supported? We want that too. So I just want to make it really clear that none of the changes that would be proposed are us trying to seek an opportunity to take away engagement of learning for individual students. It's about how do we create the space and the learning environments and the tasks and the opportunities, the questioning to create that level of engagement. So at the end of the day, that's what I'm hearing from our community is engagement, not so much levels of access. So I just want to kind of have that note from other dialogue.
Excellent. And you've done a nice job of transitioning that conversation into the part that I said I would come back to. How does this support each teacher as we go through? What is the plan that goes along with this in terms of professional learning for our teachers so that they know what these tools are and how to use them effectively in the classroom?
Start. So on approval, we would jump into what we call a phase 2 pilot. And so at every school, there would be a pilot team working with the new resources to really learn what we don't know yet and to be able to refine that in our implementation plan then come our professional learning this summer and then with the implementation in the fall and ongoing professional learning throughout all of next year and the year after. We did this exact same approach with our English curriculum. So at the elementary level, benchmark advanced, and at the secondary level, common lit 360. And it was very successful. We learned a lot from the pilots to be able to adjust and have some early adopters in each building to be able to kind of calm the waters of people when they were first getting used to the resources. So go ahead. Anything else?
Yeah, I would say I just can't emphasize enough how helpful and important a phase 2 pilot process is. We've of course aligned then our internal professional learning to ahead of the changes, begin to lay some of the foundation of just strong instructional practice, standards, that type of stuff in anticipation of, recommending changes at this point. We've mapped out the rest of the school year for internal professional learning to support educators in becoming familiar with this program and with these programs and learning from pilot lead teachers. Like Dr. Marble said, there are pilot classrooms in every school, which are intentionally occurring in every school so that all teachers have access to seeing that learning environment, administrators have access to seeing those learning environments so that we can really make some strong plans and learn ahead of full-scale implementation in the fall. Secondary and elementary will both participate in 2 days of summer training that will be from curriculum vendors that will also provide deeper understanding of the materials, which also includes the opportunity to plan for Unit 1 of both resources. So definitely a lot of thought. I'm very excited about the plan we have for professional learning. MAP has sort of the benefit of having a longer amount of time to engage in a phase 2 pilot. And like Dr. Marble said, phase 2 pilots have been so successful in the past that people this time around were saying, we want to participate. Building principals were saying, I want my teachers participating because it was just so beneficial to learn about the resources. And teachers who engaged in the pilot felt more prepared when it was time for implementation because they had the opportunity to do some advanced learning.
I also just want to share how important our instructional coaches are within the phase 2 pilot. So Eliza has strategically designed which grade levels the coaches will be working really closely with at each school. And they have already been engaging in learning, studying, seeking clarification, understanding how that aligns to the current scope and sequence and, making sure that standards are taught across those classrooms. So they're working really, really hard to be internal experts around a specific grade level and the curriculum materials. That goes for our secondary coaches as well. We've positioned 2 coaches across 12 classrooms at the middle school. And then we have a high school math coach as well that's working really specifically with algebra as we prepare for integrated 1. So having these resident experts who can help walk right alongside our educators and spend that time teaching, learning, and understanding is a critical part of that process too.
The last part is a bit of a departure from those, but moving into this integrated math system or this integrated math model removes the need for advanced 6th grade and so on further down, right? So talk to me about how we arrived at that decision, what the tracking are, and what is being put in its place, if anything.
I will, do you want to pull up the chart while I get administration? Yes. So I heard a couple of different things from you, Mr. Bauer, talking about like just tracking in general.
Yes.
And then what is the new pathway? So I'll start first with the new pathway. And the primary reason why Accelerated 6 existed in the first place was to provide a pathway to AP Calculus for students. We have found a way for students to have access to AP Calculus without accelerating in sixth grade, but rather moving that acceleration period to 10th grade, or excuse me, 11th grade. They would be making their decision in 10th grade. It allows for students to have more of that secondary identity and how they view themselves as math learners, rather than when they're 10, 11 years old having to make that decision. So you can see by this diagram that's on the board, so that shift in acceleration happens from Math 2. Students could either opt into moving to Math 3 or accelerated pre-calculus as an 11th grader, which then allows them access into any of those courses in 12th grade. And there's a lot of research around tracking as well. I'll pause and see if the team here wants to add anything else about the pathways.
Yeah, I do have one thing I would want to add. I think that there is a little bit of a misconception in our community. We keep kind of resurfacing that integrated math is the removal of acceleration. Those are really two different topics. So integrated math looks at how we are going to structure the math learning, how the standards will be taught, and really doesn't have anything to do with acceleration at all. It's integrated math, meaning how will instruction be designed in the math experience. Then there's a separate conversation around acceleration and the removal of accelerated 6 math classrooms. And what Dr. Marble talked about is really the concept of delaying acceleration, creating the foundational understanding of middle school math standards, because we know how critically important those standards are for algebra success and higher level math courses. So it's kind of two different conversations. Heterogeneous 6th grade math classrooms looks at delaying acceleration. We haven't talked about 7th and 8th grade. There's plans and what we might do in those areas later on. But then I just want to make it really clear that integrated math is not really a conversation about acceleration. So just so there's that clarity too.
I guess maybe one more thing just to add on. Sorry, Dr. Marble. Additionally, delaying this acceleration point more closely aligns with other academic and career planning timelines. So previously, kids had to make this decision in our current model in 6th grade if they may be interested in taking AP Calculus as 12th graders. And we don't ask kids to lock in to that decision at such a young age in other subjects. So that's why we're thrilled to have found a way to not require that early commitment and even clarity about future, paths or goals or decisions that kids might make many years later. They don't need to make it at that point, and they can still access the same level of courses in the proposed pathway as in our current pathway.
And I just want to add one more thing, because this has come up in our community conversations too. Acceleration to what? Because if you look at the visual, the farthest or the highest level math course we offer in Wauwatosa, and actually through MATC, is the analytical geometry and the differential equations. That's as far as our students get in their math experience. So sometimes it's like this race towards what? I want to finish math as a sophomore. And then what kinds of experiences am I looking to have in my junior and senior year as I think about the universities that I want to attend, what I'm pursuing as I enter college. So I just want to make that really clear too, that it feels like there's this endless opportunity of math experiences in Wauwatosa, but that is the highest level math course that we offer. It's through MATC. So I just want to make that clear. AP Calculus is internally offered here in Wauwatosa.
And then to answer the other question about tracking, to be crude and just blunt, tracking is sorting children. And tracking prevents students from being able to truly realize their full potential. It's actually a silent permission for low expectations. And tracking perpetuates societal inequities that we are really working hard to dismantle. And when I think about the vision and mission of our school district, tracking flies in the face of the mission and vision.
Thank you for all that. In the words of our one of our commenters today, right? We've done our due diligence. We are providing a time for a pilot program, and we are proceeding cautiously. Thank you.
Yes, Mr. Wadea, go ahead.
I have 2 comments and a question. First, comment, I think Mr. Eckert provided a pretty good example in today's board meeting of what integrated math teaching would be like on tax levies, right? Pretty sure a lot of adults watching didn't know how that was calculated until he gave us that math lesson right then and there. So would that be fair to say that that's the kind of teaching that we would start to see more as a continuous spectrum of, there's a little bit of algebra, a little bit of geometry, maybe a little bit of trigonometry, whatever it entails, it's all together in order to solve a real life problem, not just something theoretical.
Accurate.
Okay. So second comment, I know we've talked, everybody's been very focused on the math curriculum, but I do want to say that I am very pleased with what you're proposing to offer in addition for the new courses. Haven't really talked about that a whole lot. Number one, adding data science. I think that is going to be instrumental in the upcoming decade, making sure that all students understand those fundamentals, and having these other courses where students can get college credit for pennies on the dollar. That's also wonderful. So thank you. And also just pointing out like the addition of metals too, and identifying that our society does, like, we need people of all that want to go with all different, tracks of careers, and the trades are something that we have a shortage of it now. So we're already behind in teaching additional students on that. So I love that you have that all in there. All right, so those are my comments, and then my question is related to, I guess, would more or less like in the high school level, if a student was transferring in, they're coming from a tracked system. What does that look like? How would you handle the placement of that student within the new proposed system?
Yeah, so this happens already. We don't have advanced English or honors English, for example. So we already navigate those conversations all of the time with students that transfer in from other schools that might have tracking.
I think that's it.
Dr. Marble, if there was a student who came into our system, how would you determine if they belong in integrated 1, 2, or 3?
Or grade level?
Thank you. And if that student thought that they belonged, let's just say they were in integrated 1, but they felt that they could handle integrated 2. I know you still are I'm trying to set you up to talk about the process you're going to go through with your team if this is approved to create the protocols for deciding this type of work.
We would follow our talent development protocols. So we already have all of that structured.
Yeah, I just want to point out something too that I think is really important. We've been talking a lot about the what of the changes and trying to describe what they're going to look like. We have already established conversations and forward-thinking need for our community to understand more of like how math will look. So I think just pointing out, is that what it's going to look like? I think our community wants to know that too. So although we're putting out on the table what the changes are and what we need approval from as we engage in that change process. We know that our community will desire an opportunity to see that in action, what that math change looks like, how will my student experience it. So we know that that is a need, and I just wanted to identify will be something that we invite our community into as well.
I had a question. So in order to take Calc 3, a student would have to skip a grade. Would you guys, is like that skipping, would that be happening in middle school or high school?
So students in our system, so you're right that to take Calc 3, that is a course that's only offered through Talent Development Services, which means at some point in their academic career, the student did skip a grade level of math. And when I say skip a grade level of math, that does not mean that we just say 99th percentile on STAR and off you go and you skip content. We're very thorough in our assessment, our identification process to make sure that kids are demonstrating the math proficiencies to a solid, strong level before we don't take that decision lightly. So before we're deciding that, we're making sure that the major, understandings of this course, that the child can demonstrate understandings of that. So at some point in their academic career, in 3rd grade through 8th grade, the child did skip a grade level in math. So they were subject accelerated is what it's called. And that is how a student gets on that pathway. Additionally, in high school, students do have the opportunity to begin to double up on classes. So if you were a student who, never met identification criteria for a full grade level, math course to be skipped, that you could at that point in time say, I have an interest, I have goals, I have the motivation, I'm ready, and could find a way to make that happen as well. So those are really the two ways. But it is correct that the Calc 3 course is not part of our universal pathway. That would be a very high level course that's typically not offered in high school. That is, we offer as a result of meeting that need of high mathematics accomplishments and ability.
Quick question on that. When you say when we have that need, is that need for 1 or 2 students? Is that a need to have, if I've got 1 or 2 at, say, West and none at East?
Yeah, so I didn't pull the numbers this year, but historically in the past, we've had a full class of students participating in this. We have an MATC instructor who comes on site and teaches the class in person on site. So we've had enough kids to run a class.
And there's been years where we've only been able to offer it at one school because of the number of students that are qualified to take the class. So it does ebb and flow.
One other follow-up that I have, based on something you said earlier that struck me, and it sounds like the program has a lot of great resources for the teachers, a lot of things for advancing learners in there. You talk about layering additional resources, the extension problem sets. Can you talk to me or talk to us about how you find that balance between the intervention and extension side? Because I just looked at from a parent's lens of there's only so many hours of instructional time. If I've got 80% of the class that needs intervention time and 20% that needs extension, where do they find that time to balance? Is that sent home with those ones that need extension by, here's your book, go figure it out, here's your homework, or here's your virtual, here's your Chromebook, go do these things? Where does that come in there where it kind of feels like they're getting exactly what they need in that group setting together as peers in the classroom versus somewhere else?
Yeah. Yeah, good question. So I'll start off and then anyone else can chime in too. So first, that begins at the universal level. So the core math class. So if we have 55 minutes of math, it begins there. So the embedded tools that I spoke about earlier are actually embedded for universal. So for example, if kiddos are working on a problem set and a teacher notices that kids are picking up on something quickly, in real time, they can assign the need something more problem set to kids in real time. So it can be a quick decision based on teacher's observation and assessment gathering, right? That kids are ready for that. So it's almost like the teacher has it in their back pocket and they're ready to, here you go, student desk, you're ready for it right now. Additionally, both programs, the elementary and the secondary curriculum recommendations we're making tonight are both problem-based instruction. And so that approach also supports a wider range of students' needs through kids participating in the same problem. So through rich problems that allow opportunities for students to represent their thinking in a lot of different ways, to consider different ways to approach or represent the problem, we can serve a wider range of needs. And through that problem-based instruction, the teacher shifts into a facilitator role where they're listening into kids' understanding, they're asking questions to assess their understanding, and then they're prepared to ask questions to advance that learner's thinking. So in the universal block alone, teachers are able to meet a wider range of needs, potentially than they were able to in the past with our current resources. And then on top of that, teachers will take a look at the WIN plan across 5 days. So that doesn't mean that 5 days a week as an instructor, I'm working with kids on extension problems. It may mean that on Monday, I have a small group where I'm doing some instruction around extension needs. And then on Tuesday, you're going to apply that together in a collaborative group while I work with a group who has some unfinished learning, who has an intervention need. So if you think about it as looking across a week or looking across 2 weeks, right, in the way that a teacher addresses those needs, sometimes it's with the teacher and sometimes it's working on specific problems in small group settings with peers without the teacher's assistance. So when you sort of map it out in a 5-day schedule, it may seem more doable than if we were trying to do that every single day during WIN.
And we have definitely made a commitment that every student deserves the educator. So not to just put students on a device and say, off you go, that's your extension. I also want to just elevate something that has also stemmed from our community conversations is that our middle school teachers right now are planning for universal instruction in their 6th grade math classrooms and in their accelerated math classrooms. So they're having to plan 2 different universal lessons. And then within those 2 different universal lessons, they're having to plan for the variance of learners in those classrooms. So in actuality, we're giving them one core class that they're teaching, 6th grade math, and they're thinking about the wide range and needs of those students within that core universe, in that one course. Something I think too that has surfaced in our conversations with the community is that we also have to remember that our middle school and high school teachers teach one content different than in elementary. We're having to plan and differentiate in math, in ELA, thinking about science, thinking about social studies, all the different kinds of courses that might make it more challenging at times to center on that differentiation. Not that there's not tools and the resources there, but also our middle school teachers and high school teachers are focused as experts of that content, allowing them to understand the standards differently than an elementary teacher and be able to really think about progressions of standards that are just different than an elementary educator. So I just want to kind of share that as well.
Other comments or questions? Yeah, go ahead.
Oh, I had one more question. So for that kind of middle area for high schoolers who don't quite fall into that lower 10% where they need like an extra course help, are there any like ways that like you can like provide extra support that's maybe outside the classroom that's other than a course?
That's a really great question. That is absolutely a need and something that's being studied across our high schools. Liza talked about math emphasis as being a course. But one thing that's challenging in our high schools is our block and our minutes. When you only have a 50-minute period of instruction, you really need all 15 minutes for universal. I think some of the other tools that our teachers will have access to, the questioning, what's in their back pocket for students to be able to try, how they might be able to offer before school help, after school help, looking at how we utilize our FTE to support our teachers in instruction and differentiation, but it is more challenging in our high school because of our blocks of time and how all those minutes really need to be utilized for universal core instruction. Kind of like our starting point. Do you want to add on to that?
Well, I was just going to ask Ms. Ebert, if we had longer class periods at the high school level, will we be able to embed some small groups at the high school level if that existed?
More minutes of core instruction and then being able to be responsive to that instruction is an ideal state when we think about supporting learner needs.
And then just to add on a little bit to that, While digital tools are not ever a better replacement than a teacher or, instructional minutes with a teacher, this year in Algebra 1, all students do have IXL digital licenses. So for the first time, that's available to all students in sixth grade through Algebra 1. And that is a tool that can be utilized outside of the school hours in really flexible ways because kids can use it when it works best for them. And that platform is pretty clear with it helps organize practice problems and videos and things related to goals. So if you were a high school student in algebra and working really hard to pass that course and wanted some extra opportunities to study or respond to feedback from teachers, you could utilize that digital tool to do that. In addition to the IM 360 curriculum that we're recommending, we are recommending to implement that along with Assistments, which is a tool that also allows teachers to push out content to students and allows them the opportunity to get immediate feedback on that digital platform. So if you're at home on the weekend trying to, work on your math skills as a high school student, that built-in embedded, technology's ability to give you immediate feedback so that you can refine and continue to practice is supportive when you don't have the opportunity to be in math class with your teacher, getting instruction from a teacher. So again, not that that is better or replaces, but a benefit of digital tools is that they can be really flexibly used when it works for kids and can be really individualized in situations like that.
Yes, Ms. Beth, go ahead. Oh, go ahead.
I have a question about one of the other courses. So Latin, poetry, and prose. So students would be taking that their junior year, and since high school isn't offered in the middle schools, that would be their third year of taking Latin. And I know for the other language courses, they're not taking AP or a college level course until they're like fifth or sixth year of taking it since they start that middle school. So what is unique about like Latin that allows students to be able to take that college level course earlier as opposed to the other languages?
Yeah, so typically we have to stack our Latin courses because we don't have enough students to have a Latin 4 or a Latin 3. And so the Latin poetry and prose will flip-flop each year so that students that are in Latin 3/4 will have opportunity to engage in poetry one year and then prose the next year. And this is, while I would love to be able to have students have access to college level courses in Spanish 5 and not have to wait until, for example, not have to wait until the following year. This is an opportunity that was presented to us from the University of Minnesota that we wanted to jump on because it was the only language that didn't have access to college level credit.
Thank you, Ms. Beth.
Going back to math, I was able to dig into the curriculum, and I appreciate that it gives access to all students. And as a parent, it was difficult to make that decision, what track to put your child on. So I think it's great that we're offering those high level opportunities to all kids. And the fact that it's the units open with a real life problem, I think is going to pull kids in, give them different ways to relate to it, whether they're really working at a high level or if they're not quite there yet. There's still going to be ways for them to connect with what they're learning. And I appreciated it seems like there's so many opportunities with hands-on learning, independent practice, group work, so that they're communicating with each other and sharing their thinking. And I know those things are already happening, but putting your instruction around these real life problems, I think is very beneficial. I also liked the digital options and getting immediate feedback as a teacher to be able to see what kids are doing and how to tailor your instruction to individual students or maybe smaller groups, I think is really helpful in moving everybody towards those higher level math classes. Hopefully more kids will access those. So this seems like a really great direction to be going.
I want to say thank you for your deep study of the materials. I appreciate that.
Anyone else?
We've been hearing so much. What one of you talked about, parents are looking, their biggest concern is that their student is engaged. As we make this shift, perhaps to a new curricular resource, what are maybe some differences in instructional practices that we might anticipate or that your piloting teachers are already experiencing that seem to be elevating student engagement?
Yeah, so I'd say the primary instructional shift that I would expect our full system to experience is in the area of math discourse, and specifically teachers shifting into the role of facilitator. So teachers receiving training, but also materials that support them in doing explicit teaching from students' ideas. So before a lesson, to anticipate student thinking around the problems that we're presenting to kids, to connect anticipated student ideas with learning goals that we have for the day that are also reflected in formative assessments, and to elevate student ideas and to center student thinking and to center students as the thinkers and doers of mathematics for the purpose of teaching. So to shift classrooms from being really teacher-centered and the teacher being the one doing a lot of the talking and thinking and the heavy lift, really, to students doing that. That creates really authentic engagement and spaces of belonging in math classes that would be a significant change to our current state, and something that we're also intending and planning to do. That isn't just like, and by chance, these resources will help us to do that. There's a lot of intentionality behind these resources will help us to do that, which is why we think that they're the best fit for our local system.
Okay, so and they're really in a look into the resources, it really looks like like in the teacher materials, there's guidance in what type of student work to be keeping your eye out for and what are those potential anchor pieces to bring those conversations forward in the class.
Yep. Exactly. Yes. Yeah, and even it goes so far as even to support teachers with how they may sequence student thinking. So heading into a problem, if you see students or a student solving it in this way, and then a student solving it in this way, during a whole class discussion, you may want to select this student to share first, and then this student to share second, so that students can make explicit connections between those two strategies or ways of approaching the problem. So it really is just really effective and intentional design to instruction that shifts the teacher into the role of facilitator. But that does not mean that the teacher is not teaching or that there isn't just such, high level of facilitation going into that instruction.
And so looking at that design, the lesson design, whereas there are these synthesis opportunities where, okay, we've had this conversation. Now let's make sure we really are clear on what the big math idea is here.
Yes. So a lot of opportunities to stamp learning. So I think one misconception just in general, it hasn't come my way in this process, but just in general in my learning about problem-based instruction, a misconception is that well, kids just sort of approach it how they want and they just sort of do the math, and we never really are explicit with teaching because we don't do direct instruction. That is not true. So kids are grappling with mathematics and kids are making sense of math before we tell them, here's how you do it. But things like the lesson synthesis and even in the design of IM, there are points in the lesson where the learning is stamped. This is, when we saw this is that. And now we're moving into another problem. Now we just experienced that. This is what that is. And we're stamping that learning. We're making sure it's explicit. It's right. We're elevating student thinking to do that, but we're also not just saying well, kids sort of just solved it and then the bell rang and hope you got it and moving on. It's not that. So, yeah.
I think something that's important there is that, and this is very helpful for me. And I'm equating this to my job and just the real world out there of what we're going to in this model is more of a design thinking approach, a nonlinear approach. And I think what a lot of parents and a lot of yesterday's parents and yesteryear's parents, what you learned, even myself, going back to what my high school education or even prior to that looked like, was a one-way teaching approach. I came, I sat down, I was taught this, and we went this way. We never went back. You didn't really have, other than putting your hands up, you didn't have these things. This is an approach that's a lot more focused on the insights that come along the way, all in a very cyclical approach all the way through. So that way it's again more facilitation, less teaching. I think that's something that if there's a visual or something that the community can have that helps them with that, I think that's a whole lot easier for a parent to understand of what this looks like. Because it's when you first kind of digest it, it does sound like it's being watered down, less teaching, they'll figure out themselves. McDonald's employees will figure it out in the back, and then you'll get a burger. Versus this is how we're approaching this from a facilitation standpoint, where we're getting the universal material and we have now a process to go from A to Z and not just solely on A and then B and then C. You have an entire holistic approach to get all of it in iterations through everything that we're doing versus just one class.
Yeah.
I think that's very helpful.
Thank you for that. And building upon that too, I think the variety of ways that kids need to apply their understanding in these types of curriculums is really different than how likely we learned previously, right? Where it was, you do this and here's how you apply it, and this is the only context. Where in an approach like this, and even that kind of model can kind of even cause some false positives of like, we think the kiddo understands this, but then we ask them to apply it in a different way in a context they haven't seen, and suddenly they don't know how to like do the mathematics we thought they already understood. And so, because people in this community really care a lot about rigor, right? And ensuring that we have a high bar and high expectations. Part of that is the variety of applications. So we've learned something in this context in this way. What does it mean when we're talking about tax levies, right? You have to have that understanding, the conceptual understanding of the mathematics to be able to be flexible and apply it in a lot of different situations and application. An integrated model of mathematics can help kids to do that, because we're also not saying we're just siloing this. Oh, we learned about that in algebra, but we never applied it when we were in geometry because that was algebra and they're not related, right? It's different ways to connect and apply thinking, and that creates rigor in itself.
Sounds like you could have some positive potential for where they're using math and chemistry, physics, all of the other classes that math comes up in.
Absolutely.
Yeah, Mr. Wade.
So just one other thing, I always like to think of things from the private sector perspective, and I work in insurance. So my question is, from a risk reward standpoint, I think you guys have done a great job. I think the reward is worth the risk. However, if it's not, because we do have to plan for that, is it 7 years that essentially we have to wait to do something different? Or if 2 or 3 years from now, a future board decides this is not working, or we're seeing the results not working and the risk reward changes, what would be the scenario on that in that situation?
That is such a great question, and something that we as an organization are really dedicated to in terms of continuous improvement and making sure that there are cycles for improvement. So I know I've talked to the board prior to our work of a 7-year curriculum review cycle, and really having defined phases of that review. That monitoring and adjusting phase really wasn't attended to. It was like, okay, we're adopting this new curriculum and it's go time and let's hope for the best, right? Where cycles of continuous improvement ensure that before you make change, you really are articulating how will we monitor for effectiveness. So things like learning walks has been a practice in which we're deploying ourselves, Dr. Marble, and walking through, building principles, walking through, seeing the learning in action, taking note of that learning, giving feedback to our educators, looking at assessment data not just the outcome data, but the ongoing assessments that really help to see how our students performing on those common assessments. And so the answer to your question is no, we don't just sit and wait to make change. We use our data, we use our information to continually improve and monitor the effectiveness of our programming. And that is, if I would say there's one phase that is the most important in anything that we do as a curriculum instruction team, it is that monitoring and adjusting.
So it would be probably fair to say that you've already built in a few contingencies based on the review and the curriculum development process that started with ELA, where we're not just jumping into this blindly. It's already, as Mr. Bauer brought up, it's already been, you've already conceptually worked your way through it. We're going into a pilot phase. We're going to, if we're going to vote yes on this, we're going to launch it. And then the following year, it's review and just, you might adjust courses or course content. So you've already, is what I've heard is you've already built in a whole lot of ways to reduce that risk while keeping the reward.
Correct. And I don't want to make it sound like this is a financial investment, right? So back to the very beginning of this process, we didn't just go out and say, oh, this resource looks good. Let's put it on the table and have the board vote on it. The deep analysis of reviewing resources, studying them, working through different protocols such as decision analysis, using our NERN tool from the National Institute of Research to evaluate the curriculum that we are bringing to you as well. So we know it's a financial investment. We want the most effective resource before our students and with what our teachers are utilizing. And each cycle of curriculum review cycle is really important, specifically the monitoring and adjustment.
And just to clarify, are you referring to integrated 1, integrated 2, integrated 3 versus an AGA, or just in general?
Just in general, anytime you roll out something new, you have to think about what if this doesn't work?
Yeah.
And how much is it going to hurt if we have to roll it back or morph it into something different? And again, just, I think it's my job and responsibility to just ask that question. So.
Yeah, I was going to say, I feel more confident than ever in how we monitor our system. We have clearly articulated metrics that we're looking for. We have practices that we are looking for. Our building principals have really stepped up to be instructional leaders, and they have a really firm pulse on what they're looking for. Specifically with ELA right now, and as we roll out with math, they really understand the importance of being in classrooms and being in planning meetings and listening for certain things.
Thank you.
Just to follow up, would it be fair to say that, for example, the bringing forward of English 11 might be an example of that continuous improvement?
Thank you.
That,
Yes, exactly.
Even and the combining of some courses, that what you've learned from 9 and 10 has helped you to create these decisions, because that will get us closer to where you were hoping to get. Okay.
A great example.
I didn't want English to be left completely off the conversation. But that struck me as we talked more since the last meeting. And as Mr. Wadia was talking, others were talking, that this really is an example of, you create the foundation, and then you have to go back and assess what else do we need in order to reach what we want to do. Yeah, go ahead.
I just had a comment I wanted to say, as someone I think who has struggled a lot with math throughout my career. I feel like I've always been someone who's kind of been in that, like, not quite like low where you like need extra help, but still kind of low. I think this idea of like the math pad not being quite linear and going back and like having that extra resource in class to pay attention really stands out to me. And I think really definitely appeals to me. And I think that sounds like something that could definitely help to improve like student learning for people who aren't like, I guess, yeah, like needing that extra help, but still like want more attention in the classroom directly.
Thank you, Joan. I think just the vulnerability for you to share that. And I think you highlight a really important aspect of student perception being really important in our evaluation of this work, and continually, even through the review process itself, hearing from students like you who've identified that over and over again of how can I grow myself and continue to improve myself as a math learner. So thanks for sharing.
That is one of the metrics that we'll be monitoring is student voice and teacher voice throughout the process. So we can adjust where we identify themes.
Anyone else? Yeah.
Just more for Dr. Means. Dr. Means, since this team's been in place and been building all these wonderful things from a curriculum standpoint, doing these things in the direction that we want to go from the vision that we have for the district, has this team failed yet in what they put together when it comes to systems, process, supports that has shown our community in any way that we're not getting this right and that this is the direction that a district that's moving forward fast and with intention?
Thank you for the opportunity, Mr. Morris. No, I would just hearken us all back to the audit that was done 4 years ago by Dr. Dana Minogue. And I would encourage people to go back out to our website. There was a comprehensive study of our curriculum, instruction, and assessment protocol in the district. And that independent audit, which we were directed to do by the board at the time to say, so what is the health of our curricular infrastructure? That audit said that we were in bad shape. And so when Dr. Marble started this session of the board meeting by stating that within the last 24 months, this team has brought to this board 3 of the 4 core areas. And I want to be clear, they'll be the first to tell you every curricular area that we teach is important. But we use the terminology core because social studies, math, science, and English language arts are the core. No, none of those core, well, at least social study, or excuse me, science and ELA is gone very well. We know that our math scores are not where we want them to be. One of the metrics that we've already identified is ACT performance. We know that if we're not preparing young people with those certain skills, algebraic skills in particular, going into their sophomore year, the likelihood that we're going to see improvement on the ACT is unlikely. So moving away from the algebra, geometry, algebra 2 sequence to an integrated 1, 2, and 3 is not watering things down, is actually ramping things up. But your core question was, have they failed? I think this community, Ms. Heimer Rollins on, I'm going to pull you in here so people don't have to hear my voice. She's your ex officio to the Curriculum Council. And she can speak to the due diligence that not only have they brought with this proposal, but with everything that this team does. Is that a fair assessment on how this team functions?
100%. And I was just real shortly, just thank you for that due diligence, because I have sat through conversations that you've had with community members. And I know that you've offered a lot of opportunities for community members to like really engage in this, which is leaps different than how the district has kind of rolled out new things. And I have only received one email from a concerned community member about this, which I think is a testament to the amount of work that you all have put in and the really intentional listening that you've done to the community and shared what you've learned from working with the community and with teachers and with students. So the condescending comment we got this evening from a community member, I don't think that any of those talking points hold any value once anyone watches you wonderful women powerfully tell us about this curriculum. So just kudos to you and your team. I have 100% confidence in you and the coordinators and the instructional coaches and the systems that you have in place for academics, that this will be no doubt as good as the ELA and science rollout. So thank you.
But we put a system in, thank you.
Yeah.
But we put a system in place that the board and the community can trust but verify. So we'll come back to you in a year and we'll show you where we are. I'm really excited about what we are able to share with you in terms of how we're producing results in other areas in the next few weeks, because that's happening. The new teacher project, TNTP has a report that has been out now called the Opportunity Myth. It's a seminal report that most educators talk about. And one of the main components to that document talks about the fact that you have to have rich curricular materials. When Dr. Marble and Ms. Ebert started in their roles, they acknowledged we hadn't touched our curricular infrastructure in years. So when we talk about the fund balance, actually we had a fund balance of over 40%, and we weren't spending it anywhere. We weren't giving it to teachers for compensation. We weren't investing it in curricular materials. We have found a way to update our materials in a way that I think is going to make sure that students are having a better experience. So thank you for what you've added. As Dr. Worley said, you've already added value to this conversation from your perspective. But I would be remiss if I did not just conclude by saying often this community has also asked us to be bold about closing the achievement gap. So we would be doing you a disservice if we look at the data every year and we see that one of the main gatekeepers for children of color in this district is their failure rate in Algebra 1. We know that we know every year that's where children are falling. We have to do a better job in teaching algebraic functions, but also making sure that we're preparing all of our students for success or wherever they want to go post-secondary. This concept that we don't want to water down our curriculum. We want to actually meet the expectations that you have for us as a board, and we believe that we're doing it with this proposal. It doesn't speak to students who are struggling, although we need to be bold about helping those young people. We also want to be very explicit and responsive to young people who have demonstrated a gift and talent in math as well. This proposal does exactly that. So thank you for the question. No, they have not failed in any instance, but you don't have to trust us. You don't have to trust us. There's a protocol in place where you can verify. We'll come back. Just like we did this year with ELA, we'll continue to come back, and you have the ability. That's what a policy governance board does. You stay at the level of saying, we've given you a direction. Are you meeting the expectation that we've set for you? And we expect you to hold us accountable.
Can I add something that is not just, I just want to call attention to the curriculum coordinators for a minute. The work that they have done is getting out to the rest of the community. So today we hosted individuals from Whitefish Bay who came to learn about our elementary understandings of benchmark advance. Like, people are noticing what we're doing in Wauwatosa, and they're coming to us to learn. Our science curriculum coordinator has attended multiple things across the state to showcase what we're doing with Discovery Lab, what we've done with science. And other people I think this week alone, we've had 3 inquiries from people around the state of Wisconsin wanting to learn and understand more. I can't speak to the testament of Liza and Katie and enough to say about the wonderful work and the connections that they're making across different districts. So people are noticing, and I feel like I just want to call attention to the great work that they're doing.
I think that's also a testament to the charge when Dr. Means first got here is wanting the vision of becoming a lighthouse district. That is evidence that people are looking at what we are doing here in Wauwatosa, and it's really exciting.
Any question about English level?
I do wonder how high school English teachers, I mean, we were talking about people really invested in their area of expertise. What are they saying about these changes? What are they saying about not just English 11, but the electives up there as well?
Last year in spring, we were having just really difficult challenges with the current offerings that we're having with our FTE. And, you know, there was a need to do some shifting of what we were doing, consolidating. So brought the proposal to our department heads and our CTLs at that time. I said, here is something that we can consider. And they brought it back to their team, gave some input. There was a process going back and forth in spring. The majority of the team supports the proposal that we have in place to consolidate the current electives into the multicultural lit. And then the English 11, that's kind of an interesting thing. When Jessica and I started this journey 4 years ago, we put on the table English 9, 10, and 11, and it was like, no to English 11. And then when I put English 11 back on the table last year, people are like, yeah, I can get behind that now. So to the testament of like that monitoring and adjustment phase, we had to live through the English and 9, 10 implementation for people to start seeing like the need for that standards aligned course junior year if you're not taking an AP class.
Fantastic. We have some really passionate educators in that department, and I just want to continue to acknowledge the talent and expertise that they do bring to it. And it's great to hear that they have had voice in the creation of that buy-in, you know, or that voice, I would imagine will carry over to some really great results.
Sure. And I have the honor of coaching English 10, and it's just, I get to see firsthand too, like that expertise and that creativity within that team and the challenges that we have and like, you know, the healthy conflict we engage in constantly. It's been a joy to be a part of the coaching and the coordination on this point too. Yeah.
Okay, Mr. Morris.
All right. It is recommended that the school board approve the adoption of courses of study per policy 2220, and I so move.
May I have a second? Thank you, Mr. Bauer. Ms. Summers, please call the roll.
Ms. Brzezinski?
Yes.
Mr. Bauer?
Yes.
Ms. Bach?
Yes.
Mr. Morris?
Yes.
Ms. Heimer Roland?
Yes.
Dr. Worley?
Yes,
Mr. Wadier?
Yes.
the motion carries. Thank you. We move on to B, action to approve textbooks, primary curricular resources per policy 2510.
It is recommended that the school board approve the textbooks, primary curricular resources for policy 2510, and I so move.
May I have a second?
I'll second.
Ms. Bach, are there further questions? Or
I just-
comments or things you wanted to say before we?
I just wanted to re-elevate which curricular materials the board is voting on this evening and what classes they're associated with.
I think we've heard almost nothing about physics in all of these discussions. What's exciting about I was looking at the curriculum a little bit, but what drew you to that particular one?
There is Dr. Blayhouse is online too, but I can just get us started. That what is exciting about physics is the progression of learning of science in the way in which we're focusing on modeling and students representing their thinking. So, being able to continue from what's happening in biology to where we are with chemistry to where we're headed with physics, really having that progression and learning explicitly when it comes to strong instructional practices in all of those courses and in relation to how students are modeling their thinking. But Sarah, I see your hand is raised. If Jamie, you want to let her in, she can add on to that.
Sarah, you still, there you go.
Yeah, can you hear me?
Yeah, Sarah, you can talk now. Sorry.
Thank you. No, I'm so glad that you asked about physics. Yeah, we're really excited. Physics is still a course that many students take as their third science class, and it's one that, is an important piece to consider as the progression of science learning. While not required, it definitely does leverage many more of the same instructional practices that we're building upon all the way from first up through 10th grade, and now continuing that into 11th. So it's a different resource than what we're using in biology and chemistry, though leverages a lot of the same practices. It's heavy in modeling, which will be a nice natural progression from biology and chemistry, but in a slightly different way that will feel exciting and new for physics. And the teachers are really excited about this. The physics teachers don't get a ton of attention in the grand scheme of things. So they're really excited for some new, fresh resources and learning opportunities. And we got to do site visits as a part of our curricular review process and see a district, Nina High School, who's using this. And they're really anxious and excited to collaborate and keep learning and try to continue that excitement for science beyond our first courses.
Thank you. Yeah, go ahead, Ms. Emerald.
I think I know the answer to this, but on here, it's just listed as integrated math 1 for high school. But I believe the total amount for the curriculum is for all of high school, correct? Not just 1 grade. So if we do implement math 2 and 3.
The quote includes the additional integrated courses, but we'll come back to the board next year with the course proposals because we're not making the changes to those courses just yet. So students are following they're following the course. So the only change is to integrated 1 right now. And so any student who's in algebra will take geometry next year. So we'll come back with the quote reads. We won't spend all of that.
Was that, did you have a second?
No.
Okay, okay. Mr. Bauer.
Great. And then where's the money coming for to pay for these resources?
We are using the money that our community so graciously gave us in the referendum for the operational referendum.
Number 4, right?
Any other comments or questions? Okay, seeing none, Liz, I believe this is on your list. Oh, read it, that's right, sorry. Ms. Summers, please call the roll.
Ms. Brzezinski?
Yes.
Mr. Bauer?
Yes.
Ms. Bach?
Yes.
Mr. Morris?
Yes.
Ms. Heimer Roland?
Yes.
Dr. Worley?
Yes,
Mr. Wadier?
Yes.
and the motion carries. Thank you for that, it was usually rolling through.
So hard. Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you all for being here and hanging in. So we move on to letter C. Action to approve proposed 2026, 2027, and 2027, 2028 academic calendars.
So members of the board, you will see that there has been an additional draft for consideration. Let's see, let me pull up here. The main difference in the 26-27 calendar, if I can get it pulled up here, came from our superintendent teacher advisory committee. And the proposal was because the way that Labor Day falls in the 26-27 school year, we were looking to bring staff back the 3rd week of August, and that posed some challenges and posed some excitement for some of our staff. So in working with the superintendent advisory council, there was a proposal for educator self-directed days to be flexible. So if an educator wanted to come in on August 19th and 20th because they're moving their children into college, for example, that last week of August, it provided a little bit more flexibility for them. The other change in this calendar was originally there were professional learning days on November 2nd and November 3rd. November 3rd is an election day, so we would still hold that as a professional learning day. But rather than having November 2nd be that additional professional learning day, moving it to November 30th, which would extend the Thanksgiving holiday break. And then we would ease back into instruction with a professional learning day on that 30th. And Dr. Means, you and I didn't really get to discuss this, but I am not noticing any discrepancies between option A and option B for the 27-28 school year. So those are identical.
Okay, thank you for that summary. Any questions or comments from board members?
Are we picking which option first or?
Do you have it? Yeah, we have
Our recommendation.
we have a recommendation.
Our
So
recommendation.
we do need that.
Our recommendation
B, okay.
we see feedback from my superintendent teachers advisory council. And we always go to them to get feedback. We've also engaged our PTA area council. These are the tweets that our teacher leaders, the representative of the buildings suggested. I thought it was a very creative suggestion to allow teachers to pick 2 of the 4 floating days of either August 19th, 20th, 28th, or 30th. I guess, or 31st, excuse me. And then teachers asked the question, do you mind leadership if we can move that November 2nd PL day to November 30th? So this is the voice of teachers at work. So our recommendations B, option B.
Was just to say again, besides the professional learning day move in November, the bigger changes that move to flexibility. Previously, if you look at A, it's designated exactly which days, and then they don't have to use their Fridays, but what we're realizing is that they may prefer to use those days.
It was a pretty cool how it all unfolded. There was a teacher who was also a parent in the district who said, well, I worked in a different district, and the district I worked in gave some flexibility. Would you be open to it? And we were. So we are. Hence bringing option B to you for a recommendation.
Right.
So thank you for the collaboration. It's always trust the process. It will always, when we engage the right people and engage the constituents that we need to engage, good options emerge.
Okay. So,
But
yes.
the second year of that option doesn't have that flexibility in it. This flexibility is a 1 year.
We can insert it in the 27, 28, but that didn't come up as an issue in the 27, 28 calendar. The issue that was raised to us was the 26, 27 and starting that 3rd week in August. So that's why we tried to create the flexibility.
Okay.
We could, I mean, we're very open to it. But it didn't come up during the student teacher advisory council conversation. We were trying to solve the issue of starting that 3rd week, and that's the solution.
Comments or questions? Mr. Wade? Going with B here.
It is recommended that the school board approve option B of the proposed 2026-27 and 27-28 academic calendars, and I so move.
May I have a second?
Second.
Thank you, Ms. Hammer-Roland. Ms. Summers, please call the roll.
Ms. Brzezinski?
Yes.
Mr. Bauer?
Yes.
Ms. Bach?
Yes.
Mr. Morris?
Yes.
Ms. Heimer Roland?
Yes.
Dr. Worley?
Yes,
Mr. Wadier?
Yes.
and the motion carries. Thank you.
Thank you, everybody.
Yeah, thank you.
Okay, let's move on. We're getting close. Let's move on to number 8, second readings or action to approve policies. And I will turn this over to our policy committee for if it seems clear that we don't have a lot to talk about or we don't have a lot to discuss, let's just keep moving, but let's discuss where we need to. So,
Okay.
thank you for all your work.
Yeah, sure. So the first policy that's up, that 0144.5, you, Dr. Worley, had a suggestion in that board member communication section to break that into 2 sentences, and we took that suggestion. Thank you. It seems to make that clearer. Again, we just want to make sure that we can let go of some of our CCing with Dr. Means on every single email that we send. So thanks for that.
Thank you very much.
Well, we're going to handle these as we go. Board members, or any other questions or comments about the changes in policy 0144.5.
Just a quick question, so we're voting on action to approve this one, but I look at the first reading of 9A, use of electronic mail kind of goes hand in hand with it, because that's the one that actually says the superintendent should be CC'd on everything. And it looks based upon, I don't want to get ahead of ourselves, but it looks like you've got the proper language in there. So do we want to pass one then the other next time around, or do we want to pass both together since they're kind of, I don't know, in my mind, combined?
I think it'd be cleaner to do one at a time.
Yeah, I don't know how much it will really impact one or the other.
Fair enough.
All right.
Anytime we pass something like this, if there's alignment that we have to make in other policies, then we would make sure that we make those alignments.
Yeah.
Anything else? Good question.
Yeah.
Okay, Sarah, I think you have.
Yeah, there we go. It is recommended that the school board approve policy 0144.5, board member behavior and code of conduct, and I so move.
May I have a second?
Second.
Thank you, Mr. Bauer. Ms. Summers, please call the roll.
Ms. Brzezinski?
Yes.
Mr. Bauer?
Yes.
Ms. Bach?
Yes.
Mr. Morris?
Yes.
Ms. Heimer Roland?
Yes.
Dr. Worley?
Yes,
Mr. Wadier?
Yes.
and the motion carries.
Okay, and then this next one, policy 6152.01, waiver of school fees or fines. Mr. Pinion, you helped write some language, thank you, to make this maybe more meet the way we actually handle things for our families if they're in need of support. They don't need to write a fancy letter to district office. They can work with the school social worker or people at their school who probably already know their situation. There was a big change on that one.
Try to make it a little less onerous and scary for families and a little less like vulnerability for them
Absolutely.
to be able to do this.
Yeah.
As we spoke earlier in the evening, we really want to make sure our families are supported.
Yeah.
I like the fact that this actually connects to a public comment that we got a couple of months ago, warning us not to become debt collection agencies in addition to an educational system. There is a path for people in that sort of situation.
Okay.
It is recommended that the school board approve policy 6152.01 waiver of school fees or fines, and I so move.
Thank you. May I have a second?
Second.
Mr. Morris, thank you. Ms. Summers, please call the roll.
Ms. Brzezinski?
Yes.
Mr. Bauer?
Yes.
Ms. Bach?
Yes.
Mr. Morris?
Yes.
Ms. Heimer Roland?
Yes.
Dr. Worley?
Yes,
Mr. Wadier?
Yes.
and the motion carries. Thank you. I move on to letter C, second reading and or action to approve policy 7530.02 staff and school officials use of personal communication devices.
Anything on that?
This policy is how school officials and staff need to use their personal communication devices and how to retain those records. And we just added some language to make sure that staff knows to use their devices that are issued by the district to do their communicating so that those records are retained rather than having to retain them on your own if you use your personal devices.
Comments or questions? Okay. Heidi, go ahead.
It is recommended that the school board approve policy 7530.02 staff and school officials use of personal communication devices, and I so move.
Thank you. May I have a second?
Second.
Thank you, Ms. Heimer Roland. Ms. Summers, please call the roll.
Ms. Brzezinski?
Yes.
Mr. Bauer?
Yes.
Ms. Bach?
Yes.
Mr. Morris?
Yes.
Ms. Heimer Roland?
Yes.
Dr. Worley?
Yes,
Mr. Wadier?
Yes.
and the motion carries. Thank you. Okay, so as we've had a lot of voting and action tonight, we have a little bit more discussion to do, which is the first reading of a few policies that are on our agenda for tonight. And that starts with policy 0167.5, use of electronic mail.
And Mr. Wattier, you can see in this one, again, we tried to bring forward that same language in letter F. So most of that policy is the same as it has been, but again, that same census is
Same kind of guidance that,
Yeah.
that we've had before. Okay. Any comments or questions? Okay, I'm not seeing any requests for changes to the policy committee unless something else comes up before the next time this is on the agenda or you hear from someone, please feel free to put it on the consent agenda.
Yeah.
Okay, we move on to policy 5223, absences for religious instruction.
This policy didn't really have any changes. It was mostly just a template change.
Yeah, it's a policy that's been around since people have gone to religious classes after school. We have maybe less of this now, but it's still an option for families.
That was my only question, is how many students participate using this policy? If
Okay, thank you. Not hearing any. Again, that could go to consent agenda unless you think of a change or.
Wait, I'm sorry, Dr. Worley, say that again.
Oh, that one could, I don't hear any changes being requested from the board, so you could move that to consent agenda unless
Okay.
something pops up. Because we always have that sort of window that if you have second thoughts to the staff or somebody reaches out.
Okay.
Okay, we go on to C, review policy 5230, release of students to authorized persons.
This was replacing a 2009 policy. There were really no changes to it.
No. So that, again, the consent agenda, unless we hear.
Exactly.
Yep.
Excellent. We can move on to D, review policy 5310, health services.
This is a policy that's required by law. It is meant to protect parents. Making sure that they're informed about any screenings or like vision tests or anything like that that students would have at school.
Again, more for the consent agenda, unless we hear differently.
E, review policy 5320, immunization.
Similar to what Mrs. Bach was just saying about the previous state law kind of pretty much outlines what we do with immunizations. Consent, unless we hear otherwise.
Yeah, many of these cases, we have to make these changes because the law has shifted, so.
Yeah.
Okay. Thank you very much. We can move on to policy 5335, care of students with chronic health conditions.
This is a new policy for the district and is also required by state law.
Any comments or questions?
Some of these go more quickly than others. All right. So can we go to?
We can go on to G. 5340, student accidents, illness, concussion, and or sudden cardiac arrest.
Yeah. Another one from the health world, updated policy going along with state law.
Legal compliance.
Yeah.
Typically, we don't have a lot of control over the language, but it's great that we are keeping up.
Yeah.
And again, I want to remind people who might be listening or watching or reviewing, just because it's crossed out doesn't mean we've had it in the past and then we're taking it out. There are some things that are options that districts have that we have to go through a process of deciding what's right for our district, what fits. And sometimes the guidance is something that's not really what we need in our district, but it's on the whole menu. So there's been quite a bit of confusion over that we might be taking something out that we had in the past. And I think this is a case when you're updating those things that are required are in here, but the district can also make some decisions about options. Any comments or questions? Okay, seeing none, let's move on to policy 5341, emergency medical information.
This one was updated by legal counsel. And I think the thing that we discussed the most in our committee meeting was the do not resuscitate. Legally, parents cannot, someone in a school cannot decide to not resuscitate a child. So life-saving steps must be taken. And then when the child is at the hospital or
So even if a parent or family want to do not resuscitate as a district, we can't honor that. We have to do what we're expected to, and then that could be dealt with at the hospital.
Right.
Okay, thank you for clarifying. Comments or questions? Okay, seeing none. We will move on to policy 5350, suicide prevention, intervention, and postvention.
So it's an update, total replacement of the outdated 2020 or 2009 policy. As you were saying before, Dr. Worley, crossing out does not mean we're removing stuff. It's just saying we've made the choices of the options, which ones work for our district. Hopefully it's a policy we don't have to. Some of it that we hope we don't have to get into, but it's good to know that we're keeping our eyes out for.
It's also helpful, there's training.
Yeah.
Right, so it sort of outlines the expectations for knowledge and training in the district. Yeah, Mr. White.
Question, I know this may have been in place already, but the suicide intervention civil liability exemption, that is referring to the district policy with like an employee or a person or volunteer, and that doesn't supersede any sort of civil, like it doesn't, I guess I'm asking, is the district saying that they will front a legal bill if the worst case scenario were to happen and the parent decided that they wanted to sue? Maybe I'm not getting.
No, I get that. I get what you're asking. The fact that it says they're immune from civil liability.
My interpretation of this is we are, and I believe there's a statute implication, but you are held in like good faith if you're attempting to prevent a suicide and there's an injury or something and you're preventing that you're protected by law from like being gone after because you were in good faith trying to prevent the suicide.
I would just add that anytime that legal is brought against the district, our first call is our insurance company so we generally aren't fronting legal bills. It's the insurance company doing it on our behalf.
Thank you.
Anything else? Okay, thank you very much. We'll continue forward with reviewing policy 5440, culturally proficient schools and administration offices.
So this is a local policy.
So it means it's Wauwatosa specific.
Wauwatosa specific, unlike those health ones that are coming from state statutes. It's a policy that says our stance. And says that we are committed to supporting culturally responsive teaching and learning. So it is a policy that sets us apart perhaps from some other districts. This is one that I encourage us to read carefully, make sure that we're aware of what it's saying.
I did have a follow-up to that. Like, is it putting a target on our backs with the current administration and its arguments against anything that seems to be pro-DE?
No more than what it was.
Anything
In
else?
2015, when this policy was put in place.
Sure.
I think, as we've discussed in this boardroom, when you talk about targets, I think the forward-thinking, student-centered perspective that this district has always had would put us on anyone's list or radar regardless. And so the updates, if I may, Ms. Brzezinski and Ms. Bond, these updates create more current language. Instead of using terms like closing achievement gaps, we talk about disproportionality gaps. We discuss the fact that we do have an equity framework that we are addressing. It uses the term DEIA versus DEI, and it aligns with our current strategic plan that the board approved in August. So those are the updates.
Also aligns with our theory of action within that
Yes.
strategic plan. It's a big piece of the work here. And I think it's really clear that this is accessibility and access and equity for all students, not a particular category here or a particular category there. But this is really making it clear that access is for all.
The other question that I had on this one is, there has been requests for us to start thinking about trauma-informed care and working that into some of our policies as well. Is that an option, or in this policy or in another policy that we can keep in our heads as we think about things?
Mr. Pinion.
Yeah, I quickly raised my hand, but then I was like, wanted you to finish. I think there are opportunities. We had for 3 years the goal on our last strategic plan 3.1, which integrated PBIS with trauma-informed care and restorative practices. There's still a lot of opportunity left on the table for us to move through where we started, where we ended with that last year, and school self-assessing. So I say all that to remind people that work is still ongoing. I would need to put some thought, maybe with the policy committee, about what policy might best lead to integration of those three, where we were and where we're going.
That's a great
Don't know if
idea.
it's this one, could be, but we need to think about it a little bit.
It's a good
Absolutely.
suggestion. Thank you for raising that up. Anyone else? Okay. We'll move on to review policy 50 or 60 graduation requirements. Comments or questions from board members? Yes, go ahead, Ms. Hamilton.
For the graduation credit as a middle school student. My understanding of the new pathway for math is that an eighth grader could potentially be taking, so it would be like the double accelerated students could potentially be taking integrated math 1, 8th grade year.
So that would happen through our talent development process. So because we have removed the accelerated 6th grade, there's no longer the accelerator or double accelerated pathway unless it's through a talent development lens. So the number of students that would be accessing a high school class and middle school in mathematics in particular is going to continue to get smaller and smaller. Also, I just wanted the board to know that we are an outlier district that does provide credit to students that access high school classes in middle school. And annually, we have to constantly remind families, and we do constantly get requests to have a high school class that was taken in middle school to be redacted from a transcript. And that's not something that we can do because there wasn't the clarity for the student of, I'm taking a high school class, but I'm in middle school. So it's on the table for consideration. We would not implement this until, we would begin implementing this with the class of 2033. Those are our current 5th graders. So any current middle schooler that would be accessing potentially any of our high school classes through their current pathway would still have that opportunity. We certainly don't want to pull that that rug from underneath our students at this time.
So someone graduating 2033. If they are double accelerated though, what happens to math 1? Integrated math 1, if they take it in 8th grade?
So they would still take integrated math 1. The credit would simply be for middle school credit. It wouldn't be for high school credit, and it would not go on their transcript.
So then that student would have to still take 3 math, because you said that some of our accelerated students now stop their sophomore year.
Correct. So they would still, yep. So once they got to high school, they would still have to take
A third year.
3 years of math.
So, and that seems to make sense that students who are really accelerating in mathematics are people who have an interest in continuing to study mathematics. So they're going to be making that decision with the information saying, you may take this now, but be aware, you will still need to continue to take 3 classes of mathematics when you get to high school.
Correct.
And likely, these are students who would want to anyway.
And likely these are the students we're talking about that would be accessing that Calc 3 class.
Okay.
Why explicitly have that listed in policy? If there is a potential that some students would want to use that class for high school.
Not sure I understand the question.
So why take away the possibility of a first student to have 8th grade count? My daughter was accelerated in math. She does not like math. And so she's the one who has not taken a math class since sophomore year. So I just what is the explicit reason?
Which gave her other opportunities, space in her schedule to do other things.
Right,
yeah.
every art class.
That's, I see where you're
And
going.
several AP classes in humanities this year. I just why take away the opportunity? I guess is my question.
Yeah, good question. It's really as we're looking to just streamline different processes and continue to look around us and make improvements based upon what other school districts are doing as well. And the way in which the pathway is set up, we will have fewer students accelerating. I can understand why there was a push to move to have students have high school credit in middle school because we were providing we were telling students that the only way that they could get to the highest level math was they had to accelerate in sixth grade, which inevitably put a lot of students at having access to either algebra or geometry in middle school.
What is the impact of this particular piece of the policy on students who've been taking summer school between 8th and 9th grade in order to take like gym or some other high school class?
Oh, that still applies because summer school from eighth grade going into ninth grade is considered high school.
Okay. Yeah, Mr. White.
So currently, is it, if an eighth grader is taking a high school class, does that factor into their high school GPA?
It sure does.
So it would be fair to say, to answer, maybe help answer Liz's question and also my own. Both the parents and the student may not realize that if they don't do well in that one class, that may affect their GPA enough to where they might not get exact, they might fall a little bit short of probably qualifying for UW Madison or some of the other things that come with having high performing grade wise.
Yep, it happens every year. A student maybe got an A minus or a B plus, and they go to high school and it's all A's, and they have that one.
So by doing it this way, we're making it more equitable to say everybody starts at high school.
Correct.
And we're not giving somebody both either a jump start or letting them into the school without letting them know how deep it is.
Yep.
Okay.
Could I say something real quick?
Yeah, please.
I think, so you mentioned though how there would be much fewer students who are taking this path. And I think that the students who would be on that path would have a better understanding than of like the gravity of taking that high school class in middle school, as opposed to how many people do it now. So I feel like if we were to keep the policy of allowing people to get credit for like an eighth grade class, I think the people who were taking that would probably do better than like the average now because they are double advanced and they're pretty proficient in math already and would understand the gravity of that decision, if that makes sense.
Certainly possible.
I guess the only other thing I thought of is if we, not knowing how our secondary schools will be situated. If we're in a 7-12 environment, like, does that maybe shift even more like that students thinking about the gravity of the, it just was something that stood out, like, I don't know, what's broken about how it is now, I guess, but thank you.
Sounds like the main thing is broken is that people have regrets. Like they might have regret about the grade that they got.
Yeah, I guess I don't know, somebody might have regret over taking this advanced class and not getting credit for it, so I can see, I understand, but.
No, I'm feeling some dilemma too. It's like, it feels a little bit like it's micromanaging the decisions of the family.
I'd speak personally, I was one of those students where I didn't know as an eighth grader, I had to physically walk over to a different building and you're not really prepared for what you're getting into, and all of a sudden math is just a lot harder in that environment. And I went and I got that D my first, so going in, having straight A's, going in to high school and having a B already, it's pretty, you don't come back from that if you're trying to get top awards. So it's pretty defeating. And I didn't know that. My parents didn't know that. So yes, it is a bit of, regret. But if the community feels that it's important and everybody is well educated on possible ramifications of it, then I don't necessarily see a problem with it, but.
Yeah, I mean, it comes to the dilemma maybe we need to think about between now and the next time it comes up is, is this the role of policy to manage this, which might be as much about communication and social capital about people really understanding what the implications are. I mean, I had a child who did this and got high school credit, but it was a 6 through 12 school. So to your point, we might make this policy now and it might not fit as well depending upon the model where secondary goes. So I think that we should do some listening to, or more listening. I'm not saying you haven't already, more listening to our community about how important is this, and is there some other way to solve the downside of what's happening?
Would it be possible for students and their families to like opt into receiving the credit after they learn about potential ramifications, or is that not something that's possible?
To see what grade they want and they get and then decide.
Or like before they take the class?
There's a signature that you have to, waiver they have to sign.
Right, so they could still take the class, but opt out of it being high school credit.
Yeah.
That's an interesting idea, but might be complex on the administrative side.
Nicole's like,
And we're just brainstorming.
Let's make campus, just check the box.
It sounds like we should marinate on this one a little bit.
Yeah. Okay, thank you for that discussion. We're on to L. 5461, children at risk of not graduating from high school.
This is a new policy and it is also required by law.
I would add that the criteria you are reading in the policy is verbatim from statute in Wisconsin in terms of criteria for meeting meeting the at-risk criteria. And we use our MLSS system to, as you're well aware of through SST, layer on identify needs and layer interventions, make plans.
So to be compliant, we need to have this policy.
Yes, we should have had it for a long time now.
Okay. And on to M, review policy 5464, early graduation.
Okay, so this policy is updated that, one of the clarifying statements is that the high school principal is the one who makes the final decision. They're the one who's closely connected to students and would know that more than somebody over at district's office about if they're meeting those qualifications. And then once you graduate, you come back for anything, you've still got to follow our rules. So this a little footnote in there for students.
So if they decide they want to graduate with their class, or they want to go through the ceremony.
Yes,
with their
so,
class,
yeah, right. You might graduate at the end of the first semester, but walk across stage with all of your friends.
Exactly. We don't even offer us December, so.
Yeah, and so we'd love to have you there. Please remember.
You're still under
rules
district
apply.
policy.
Yeah.
Great, perfect. Okay. Comments or questions? All right, so on to M. Oh, no, that's it. So yay, we're done with 10. I thought we had one more. We now move,
But
yes.
just so I'm clear, all of these will go in consent except for 5460.
Except for, thank you for that,
Yes.
5460 is that one with the graduation requirements.
Right.
Thank you.
Just wanted clarity.
Thank you.
Yes.
Yes.
Thank you.
And if anybody has more detail or suggestions on that one and wants to share it with the policy committee, please do that. In the meantime, if you have ideas for wording. Okay, so we move to adjourn number 10. The time is 9:59. We'll be fast. We can finish by 10. May I have a motion to adjourn? So that was on you.
Adjourn.
May I have a second?
Second.
Oh, wow, it's close. I'm gonna call for Mr. Bauer. Might be the speed of sound though. Ms. Summers, please call the roll.
Ms. Brzezinski?
Yes.
Mr. Bauer?
Yes.
Ms. Bach?
Yes.
Mr. Morris?
Yes.
Ms. Hammer Rolland?
yes.
Dr. Worley?
Yes,
Mr. Wadier?
Yes.
and the motion carries. Thank you, everyone, for your work tonight. A lot accomplished.
Thanks.